Welcome in to the MPW Digital post-game show. Ole Miss just annihilating Georgia Tech 42 to nothing today from Atlanta. I'm your tour guide. We'll talk all about that. We will talk about the rest of the stuff going on in the SEC today, this evening. Got Mississippi State and LSU up right now. Auburn and Penn State, I guess, finishing up what is a Penn State rout on the Plains. Auburn down 41 to 12 last I saw there. So Ole Miss wins 42 to nothing. A little different deal tonight. What we're going to do, probably not a little different deal, but a different situation as far as the order of callers. We're going to go to Neil pretty quickly. He'll be ready in a few minutes. We'll call Neil. We'll talk to him about the Ole Miss win today, and then we will call Brian, and then we'll take your calls. Jeffrey has the night off. He is at a wedding in Sonoma. You guys are aware of that we're on our Thursday stream, as Jeffrey joins us every Thursday morning. So a lot of you guys already knew that, but Ole Miss just, again, a rout from the beginning. They scored in the first minute and a half of the game. They were up 14-0 through two possessions, and Georgia Tech had the opportunity to score to cut it to 14-7 to at least kind of make it interesting for a minute. Ole Miss stops them on fourth down, and from that point on, the game was over. When Ole Miss went over 500 total yards late in the third quarter, Georgia Tech was still at 150. Ole Miss gets the shutout. Just really acted defensively. I know we're going to talk a ton about quarterbacks and offense, and that's the sexy thing that everybody's kind of curious about. But Ole Miss's defense has been incredibly elite to this point. They look very well coached under Chris Partridge. They're flying around to the football. They are making tackles. What you're noticing through 3 weeks. And I mean, we've seen the game. We've seen some good defenses. We've seen some bad defenses at Ole Miss over the years. They are really tackling well. They are always surrounding the football. They're swarming. They're really good in the middle of the field. The guys on the second and third level are coming up and really making a lot of plays. I mean, it's been impressive from a defensive standpoint. And look, Georgia Tech was outmatched. Jeff Sims had an incredibly rough day today. We'll look at stats here in a little bit, but Ole Miss shut them down more than Clemson did 2 weeks ago, and you can't really do the transitive property thing, but when you look at Ole Miss overall, they hammered Georgia Tech to a larger scale than Clemson did. Troy showed up really well with App State today. I think App State ended up winning by 3 or 4 points there at the end, but Troy played well. Again, transitive property doesn't necessarily mean anything, but Ole Miss can only play the schedule that's in front of it. And they've completely handled it at this point, including just a demolition today. I mean, it really was. It was complete and utter dominance in all ways. And defense carries it. Run game, very, very good. 6 different touchdowns from a running standpoint. 2 each from Quinshon Judkins, Zach Evans, and Ulysses Bentley. Evans showing elite vision. His cutback ability is as good as anybody in the country. Judkins has been a battering ram when he gets downhill. He's a really good overall back. And then there in the second half, when Georgia Tech's belly was very much exposed, Ulysses Bentley was a change of pace, a guy that found creases and scored a couple touchdowns himself. Ole Miss had 200 rushing yards at the half, give or take, and then ended up, I think, over 300 for the game, if I have that stat correctly. It's not in front of me right now. Quarterbacks, look, this is Jackson Dart's team. Luke played 1 snap of significance prior to it getting to be blown out, and that's when Dart's helmet was off. And during the first half, Dart made some mistakes. He threw an interception right before halftime that was ugly. Lane was all over him after that. It was a pretty vocal, animated conversation here in the locker room there with him being frustrated with him. But I thought he got into a little bit of a rhythm in the second half. We'll talk to Neil about it in a second. But I thought Dart got better. I thought that, he shows a lot of leadership, and you can make of that what you will. But at some point, and it's not that Luke's done anything wrong, but when you look at how this thing has played out, Ryan says Quay to completely undersell the end of that Troy App State game. I didn't see it. The Ole Miss game ended, and then I've got 10 different things going on to get ready for the start of the show. So I actually did not know the end of that game until I just looked it up a second ago on ESPN. So I actually had no idea how that game ended. You'd have to tell me. I've seen nothing over the last 15 minutes or so. I am watching Mississippi State lead 6-0 late in the second quarter in Baton Rouge, but that's all I've got in front of me. But I thought Dart got into a little bit different rhythm. Thought he made some plays. Look, it just is what it is, He's going to be that kind of quarterback, but he's done a pretty nice job for the most part today. I thought he was okay. And as I was saying, I thought he sort of took it over where it's his team today. I thought that not just trucking the defender, but or even necessarily, the anecdotal stuff of him celebrating with everybody late in the game, but just overall, I thought that there was a different kind of, different leadership tangible from him today that shows that, look, it was already probably his team. I don't know why we did so much cloak and dagger over the course of the week. He took every rep, according to multiple sources, over the course of the week. But, yeah, it's his team, and they'll move forward, and he's going to make some mistakes. But, you look at that back foot throw to Mingo and a couple different things. They played pretty well today. I thought Dart was okay. We'll talk about it with Neil. Go ahead and get him on the line in a second, because otherwise I'm just going to sit here and ramble to myself. So we'll see what he has to say about it. Again, yeah, we're watching LSU. I was not aware. Yeah, okay. App State threw a Hail Mary to win. Okay, see, I had no idea. I had no idea App State threw a Hail Mary to win that game. I hate that for John Sumrall. That is what's on my mind when I see that. Is I really like John, and I absolutely hate that for him. Let's see. Let me get Neil on the line. I guess I did undersell it if that's how it went down. That was really, really dumb on my part. Daniel, my man, appreciate it with the super chat as always. Thank you very much. Hope you can entertain. Am I pulling for State or LSU? I don't have a crazy strong opinion on it. I'm not sitting here jittery about the game or whatever, but I tell Neil this all the time. If you're watching a game, you're going to have some semblance of a rooting interest because you just can't help it. If it gets down really, really close here at the end, even if you don't care, if there's somebody you want to win, and I think it's LSU, and I don't even necessarily know why, but I just find myself sort of pulling for LSU in this.
Hello.
Neil, how are you?
Chase, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm lovely. Apparently, I really undersold the end of the App State-Troy game. I did not realize that there was a Hail Mary involved. I just said App State won by 3 or 4
Oh, my
points.
God. Have you not seen it?
No, see, you know how this works. I'm doing observations and getting everything set up, and I couldn't find my AirPods. I've seen nothing over the last 15 minutes. I just casually threw in there, App State 32, Troy 28.
No. It was as wild a Hail Mary as you'll see in a long time. I mean, if you're John Sumrall and Troy, it's just gut-wrenching. If you're App State, it's just the culmination to an incredible, unforgettable day. But, I mean, it was an absolute freak play that the DB is taught, knock it down, and he didn't. And he kind of tipped it, and the rest is history.
So, bounce around. So much of this game today, and I know that everybody wants to do the sexy stuff and talk about the quarterbacks, but what do we know about this defense at this point? Because they are swarming to the football. They are playing really well at linebacker, even without Corey Coleman today, who left early with an injury. No update on that as of now. Again, Lane is probably talking as we're talking at the moment. Otherwise, I didn't see any injuries. Troy Brown gets targeting, but he's not going to miss anything next week. It was just for this game. They were really good on the second level, third level again. And now, look, Georgia Tech sucks. Jeff Sims is not very good at quarterback, and he can do nothing down the field. But this is an assignment-sound defense. This is a tackling defense. It's a swarming defense, and a defense that is appeared to be very well coached and is usually in the right place. I know the competition has been what it is, but I'm beginning to believe that maybe this defense is just simply good.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And, you and I talked about it, I guess, late third quarter, early fourth quarter when I was talking to you, like, hey, here's the column I'm writing. What do you think? And, it's two things. One, you don't exactly know yet what this defense is, what this offense is, what this team is, because you don't exactly know if they've played anybody. And yet, on the other hand, you do have eyes. And you do know when someone or some unit passes the eye test and when it doesn't. And this defense passes the eye test with flying colors. Now, look, I don't know that they're dominant up front. You and I talked about this a little while ago. I think they're good. I don't know that they're dominant. I'm going to hot take you here as we do this. LSU's not very good. That's just my hot take. Anyway, you know, they're really solid on the second level. They tackle well. Their assignment's solid. They're really, really good on the back end. They have a lot of different people, just like we thought might be the case in preseason camp. They have a lot of people who can make plays. They're athletic. They're fast. They're disruptive. They're physical. They're deep. There's a lot there defensively. Listen, I think there's a lot there offensively. I mean, you're right. It's the sexy thing to talk about quarterbacks and talk about Jackson Dart's game and this, that, and the other. And did Jackson make some mistakes? Yes, he did.
Sure.
You know, was he – do I think he runs a little much? I do. Do I think he gets a little too physical at times for you know, what you're trying to get out of your quarterback? Personally, I think so, especially when you have that trio of backs in the backfield. I don't know that I want, if I'm Lane, I don't know that I want Jackson Dart running the ball and lowering his right shoulder to take on a defender. As much as I love the competitiveness and the athleticism, I suspect that he thinks, I don't know that that's really what I want in the third quarter of a blowout game at Georgia Tech. But they run the ball well. They're gaping holes on the defense that they create with an offensive line. I think they protect fairly well. You know, they've got some receivers who do make plays. You know, have they played anybody yet? I don't know. Have they played are they going to play better teams? Absolutely. But look, you know, I wrote this in my column, and I'm jumping around a little. I hope you don't care. It's interesting to me that we all, you, me, everyone, we look, because it's our job, I guess, to nitpick. This is a program that has now. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's possible the State's pretty good and the LSU's pretty bad. I'm just going to tell you that. I don't think I don't think either one of those takes are particularly scorching. I don't think I need what Jeffrey always say, put your oven mitts on.
Yeah.
I don't know that I need oven mitts for those. I think it's possible that I just need some calluses on my fingers to take those plates out. I don't think that's unfair. But, you know, what was I saying? I mean, I think it's possible this team's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they hadn't played anybody necessarily. I mean, you know, Troy, you and I talked about this. The transitive property is a dangerous thing to do in college football, and we're going to do it a little bit with App State and Troy and all that. Central Arkansas, and I think Georgia Tech's headed to another 3-9 season. But you ask your team to handle what's in front of it on the schedule, and this team has. And I know what I was going to say. They're dating back to the Outback Bowl. This team has now won 14 of its last 17 games. This program has.
Is that what it is?
I mean, correct my math if I'm wrong. So the Outback Bowl's 1-0. They went 10-3, so that's 11-3, and now they've won 14 of 7.
Yeah, because the stat is actually, though, they actually won 2 or 3 before the loss at LSU too.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough at math.
That's fine, but it's literally like 15 of 19 or something, 16 of 19.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, the point is that since Kiffin, I guess it was the Auburn game. Mm-hmm. They lost to Arkansas and Auburn back-to-back in 2020, if I recall correctly. And since then, they've lost at LSU in that weird game, and they've lost to Alabama, Auburn, and Baylor. And they've won everything else. And so at some point, I think you have to start giving a program the benefit of the doubt when it's earned it, and I think they have. You know me, I'm not a big traditionalist. I've been this way for a long time. We've talked about this, like, you know, just because Nebraska once won doesn't mean they're going to win again. Just because Ole Miss didn't win in the 5 years ago doesn't mean it won't win now, et cetera. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. I always have been. They're playing at a really high level, and the fact that we are looking, and it's our job to do it, and there are some things to pick apart. And frankly, I think if you watch Lane Kiffin's body language, Chase, he's picking them apart. So I don't think we're being completely unfair, because Lane didn't appear to be just completely, pleased with everything that he saw. But the fact that we're picking apart in any shape, form, or fashion a 42-0 win on the road against a Power 5 opponent, I think speaks volumes about where the program is today.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, they went in and just systematically dominated this game against an ACC team. And you look at Georgia Tech, Jeff Collins is most likely fired at the end of the season, although I don't know who the hell you're hiring or what you're doing because your program just sucks.
I don't either.
But
I don't either. I don't know what you're doing.
At the same time, they're not completely incompetent in every way. I mean, there's a time when it's an Ole Miss program, you're just trying to get out of there with a win and you move on. And instead, we talk about our guy from Dubuque, and he turned that game on. It's dovetailing into what you're saying. He turned that game on. He saw 21-0, and he went, hell yeah, of course. Ole Miss is good, and Georgia Tech's bad, and that's what's happening. And Lane Kiffin's running plays, and here's what they're doing. Outside of us, who is looking for every wart, because otherwise we have nothing to talk about, the country is just looking at Ole Miss as a team that is firmly into that second tier, as we were talking about on Thursday, is beating the teams they're supposed to beat. You look up and they go, hey, I'm really excited when Ole Miss plays Kentucky and Ole Miss plays A&M and Ole Miss plays maybe even Alabama and all this kind of stuff. They're just a good SEC team now. We're doing all this, oh, God, what if this, and this, because otherwise this show would suck. But at the same time, everybody else just look at it and go, no, damn it, they're just good. Period. Ole Miss has gotten – now, look, they have to control the second half of the schedule. They've got Kentucky in 2 weeks. They've got exams coming. But at this moment, they're just simply a team that's supposed to go win a lot of football games. And that's it.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, there's a top tier in the SEC, and you know who it is. It's two teams. And then Ole Miss is in that next group. And right now today, that next group is Ole Miss and Kentucky and Arkansas and maybe Tennessee, maybe Texas A&M. That's the group. Maybe. But the three that are definite today, and I know it sounds weird if you're a traditionalist. I get it. But the three that are in the next group today that you can say, I think I feel pretty good about these three teams being in the next group are in order, I think, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Arkansas.
And they've now done it multiple years in a row. They've been they all were good teams last year. And when you look up, and as the game we're watching right now with State and LSU, if you're LSU, or this disaster that's going on the Plains with Penn State and Auburn, that is terrible news.
Can we talk about that for a minute, by the way?
Yes, I'm going. That is terrible, terrible, terrible news for Auburn.
Yeah, I don't think he can survive those kinds of losses. I'm just too familiar with the program. I don't think he can survive those types of losses. I think that's what does him in. I think it's one thing to lose, let's say my prediction and Neil's picks had come true. I think I had 20-16. I think it's one thing to survive 20-16. I think it's another thing to survive what he just went through. They're gonna go after him now. Then they've got the goods on him. And even if he beats LSU in 2 weeks or whatever, I think the writing's on the wall. They want to play big games in Auburn, and they're not going to play big games. And I mean, I think if you look at Auburn today, I don't know how Auburn stays within 2-3 scores of Ole Miss. I don't know how Auburn beats up Mississippi State. I don't think they do. And LSU just scored, by the way.
Yeah, seeing that.
41-12 is not acceptable there. So I mean, those rumors will pick up now. I mean, you'll start hearing specificity in regards to rumors, I suspect, fairly soon. I don't think Harsin survives. It's over. They're not good, but look, their problems go beyond Brian Harsin. I mean, the league's different, and they're just because Auburn was on top of the league or a really competitive team in the league for a long time doesn't mean that they'll always be that. It just doesn't, not anymore. The game's changed, the landscape's changed, and I think just because you were fourth or fifth in the league for several years in a row, you're not guaranteed that spot.
That's the thing, too. You look at this, and again, we're bouncing. I'm going to come back to a couple things from the actual game today. But you look at this thing coming up, and look, 2 weeks from now, it's said here in the stream, Kentucky, Ole Miss, just a monster game in 2 weeks. Ole Miss is going to beat Tulsa,
sure,
whatever Kentucky's doing next week. Are they off? Who do they play? Northern Illinois. They play Northern Illinois next week. They're going to win that game. If Ole Miss finds a way out of that, it's a if, but, I mean, they can win the game for sure. Vanderbilt, and then an Auburn team that probably has not just turned on Harsin, but frankly, they might be so damn in the gutter that it looks a lot like what the hell Penn State's doing to them right now.
Oh, I don't.
Because they
don't
can't
think
throw
there's
the
any
football.
question.
Here's the thing. We talked about this Ole Miss defense. Unless you're just, incredibly physical and you're just going to line up and do this Georgia kind of running down to the throat. And look, maybe you can do that on Ole Miss. I don't know. We haven't seen either way yet. But otherwise, you've got to throw the ball down the field. You have no choice because Ole Miss is simply too fast in the second and third level. You cannot run on them and throw short and just hope you're going to break tackles all day and go down the field. It's not going to work.
No, I agree completely. We've been talking about this, I think, since the summer. I targeted the Kentucky game. I think I got this one right. I said I thought Kentucky would beat Florida and that this was going to be a battle of unbeatens and it was going to be a really big game. And I think it's actually going to be bigger than I thought it was going to be for both teams because I think the winner has a legitimate shot to get to 8-9-0. I do. I think that's real. And I'm not going to judge anything on Kentucky today, by the way. I know they were a little flat against Youngstown State. That's predictable. They just came off a emotional win at Florida, and for them to come back and just sort of be a little bit bored and methodical against Youngstown State, sure, I don't have a problem with that. I saw someone, I don't know who was on Twitter, somebody with some hot take early in the day, Kentucky's offensive line struggling with Youngstown State. And it's like, oh, for God's sake, it's the first drive of the first quarter, shut up. It's the same way that, I suspect Arkansas is going to be sleepy against Missouri State today. Just stands to reason. In the same way that I think Ole Miss might be a little flat Saturday against Tulsa because they know what's coming. But to Ole Miss's credit, so far this season, even in the games where you think they could be a little flat or methodical, they're not. They've shown up. They're kind of businesslike. They kind of have a personality, and their personality's pretty methodical, Chase. They're good. I think it's a legitimately good team. Does that mean they're going to win 11 games? No, not necessarily. But, like I told you earlier, for the first time, today was the first time that I watched and I went, maybe.
You thought the ceiling went up
No,
today.
maybe doesn't. Yeah, ceiling's higher. Now, maybe does not mean definitely. And look, they could still lose to Kentucky. They could lose to A&M. They could lose to Alabama and Arkansas. And hell, State's good. State, who knows? So you could lose multiple games. But now if you told me this team found a way to win 10 games today might be the first time that I go, yeah, okay, I get it.
I do think Dart is better than he's getting credit for being. I think we're so hyper-focused on every mistake. Look, did he have overthrows? Yes, he did. He missed several big throws down the field. He made 2 or 3 throws, though, that most quarterbacks frankly can't make.
I thought he played like a 19-year-old with a really high upside who is still refining his skills. That's what I thought. I thought he played like a young guy who is going to be a really good quarterback one day.
If you told me I had to go buy or sell on him as an NFL quarterback making rosters and hanging around a while, I would go buy.
Yeah, I'd buy today. I would. I wouldn't invest just a ton of my money in it, but yeah, I'd buy. Sure, I'd buy that. I don't think that's outlandish. He made some mistakes. There was a play where he was going down he was about to be sacked, and he flung the ball away, and he got, they made the right call. They went back and called it intentional grounding, which appeared to be the right call. But those are the kind of plays where you got to eat the ball right there. You don't sling it because you might sling it up into the air and it turns into a pick six, and it's sort of stupid. The interception at the end of the half was not a good read. It was not a good decision on his part. But I thought his second half, the third quarter when he really played, I thought he played really, really well. And that shows that he's pretty coachable, that Lane chewed on him pretty good. And he responded by
just being better.
Making plays. Yeah, being better. He didn't sulk. He didn't whatever. He just kind of made his plays. If anything, if I have a criticism of him today, it is simply of hey, man, I know you love to compete, and I know that that's the way you are, but you've got to dial that back a little bit at times. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but it's not all the time. You can't put your shoulder down and try to run over everybody. That is eventually going to backfire on you. I mean, that literally is my criticism of him.
I feel like we've seen this before. It feels like another quarterback we covered recently that you had to calm down a little bit and quit trying to run over defensive backs.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Matt Corral.
There's a little Corral in
there. Super competitive. Yeah, I mean, and that's a good thing. I mean, I just think sometimes you got to say, hey, listen, you can't do that all the time. Got to have a minute. Got to know when to play that card, and that card can't be played all the time. And I thought, well, today he played it a time or two when it probably would not be advisable. But again, I mean, now we're really nitpicking again. I mean, that's what I kind of go back and remind us that 2019 this was a program that was super mediocre, and here we are critiquing a 42-0 win on the road against a Power 5 opponent. I mean, that probably says something. And you're right. I mean, if all we did was, hey, they were awesome, see you guys Saturday, it's going to be a really long week of podcasts. But you're having to dig a little to find things to criticize.
Lane was coaching to the whistle, much like Nick Saban. It was yelling at the reserves to play. It was fussing at mistakes, pushing guys to be competitive and try to get more snaps, and frankly looking for some damn negatives, because otherwise it's 42-0. And when you get in on film tomorrow, I mean, okay, great. I mean, Tech sucked.
I don't know. I don't. You know what I think it was? I think I've used this word a lot. I think it's an attempt to establish culture.
Yeah.
I think you're establishing culture. I think you're he spent those years with Saban, and that's people like to criticize Saban. 13-7 at the half, by the way, at Baton Rouge, Mississippi State leads. I think he's trying to say, hey, this is not going to be a program where we're going to sit around on the sideline in the middle of September and celebrate a blowout win over what's probably a bad team. We're going to work. We're going to get better. We're going to improve. We're going to establish an identity, and this is going to become the norm here. I think that's what's happening. I didn't take it as anything more than that. I think you're right, coach to the whistle. If you're on the field, you're held to a standard, and you're expected to live up to that standard. I think that's more than anything kind of what he's doing. And frankly, Chase, that's the sign of a program that is trying to go from good to really good, from really good to position to be elite. And I mean, you're in the same look earlier today, and I didn't see all of it, but I saw enough of it to go, whoa. I mean, when you're in the same league with Georgia, that's the standard right now, Georgia.
And holy hell.
And so if you're going to compete with them, well, it's a pretty high standard, and there's no place to let up.
Because again, I know transitive property and all that, but Oregon beat the hell out of BYU today.
They did, and I think you're right. There might be some transitive property here, but I think Oregon would tell you, hey, you guys go to Georgia and play Georgia. When you get through with it, tell me what you think of your team.
Yeah.
I mean, South Carolina last week was competitive against Arkansas for the better part of 3 quarters, and today they were competitive against Arkansas for the better part of 3 minutes of pregame. Hell, Arkansas might just be so much better than everybody that nobody can compete with them. I think that card's on the table.
You obviously mean Georgia.
Yeah, I meant Georgia. Yeah, I think they're the best team in the country. They're certainly the best team in the SEC. They're dominant. And so that's kind of my point. I mean, for years we've been saying, hey, Alabama's the standard. And to my point, Georgia for years said, hey, Alabama's the standard. That's what we're chasing. And when they finally caught them last January, now they're trying to stay ahead of them. And right now I think they are. I think they're the new standard. And if you're Ole Miss and you're trying to become elite, well, to get elite in this league, you've got to catch Georgia.
I know we just keep seeing the same thing, and that's incredible play, but anything different or more significant out of the backs today, having that kind of day?
I just think there's such unique weapons. Evans has that burst. He's such a complete back, and Judkins to me just looks like a superstar when you want down the road. I mean, and then you got some good things today out of Bentley, and that's their identity right now. And I wrote this in the column. If your identity at a minimum is this team that can run the football and be really stingy on defense, well, that's okay. If that's your identity, that's all right. You can play with that. Is that enough to go be, a national champ or something? No, you probably got to be a little bit more than that. You got to have a little more balance. You got to find some big play in the passing game and those things. But if your identity day to day is, hey, you're going to line up and be able to run the ball super effectively the way Ole Miss has, and you're going to line up on defense and be physical and fly to the football and make plays and all of those things, that's a pretty strong identity in this league. I've seen a lot of teams take that very identity and turn it into double-digit wins.
14 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Liberty leading Wake Forest 23-20 in Winston-Salem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Tulane goes to Kansas State and wins today. South Alabama loses by a point or 2 points, whatever it was, at UCLA. There's a hell of a lot of parity.
We are seeing no more than 20 teams completely separate from every damn body else. And maybe it's nowhere near that.
You think it's 20?
No.
Yes.
Maybe it's 10.
I'd go less than that. Yeah, I'd go less than 20. I'd be closer to 10. I just think it's I don't know what that is either. I have to think about it. It'd be a good podcast early in the week. What explains this? What explains? I don't know what the score is right now, but like I saw, Kansas was super competitive with Houston. I think they were ahead by a score or two earlier in the day.
Coaching is so important. We're I'm not saying you and I, but in general, we're getting so caught up in NIL. And look, talent wins. You got to have the Jimmies and the Joes consistently. But head coach and culture and a lot of those things, that can go get you one time. That we're undervaluing as a college football collective what just straight coaching and culture can do in the one-off, where you've got App State, A&M, you've got Tulane, Kansas State. Look, Kansas State's a better team than Tulane. But there are very few programs that are completely foolproof from that happening, I guess is my point.
Yeah. Fritz is really good. He's built some culture at Tulane where they're resilient coming off of a bad season. They've been better this year. I think we talked about it. Lance Leipold at Kansas, I had the football person tell me, get your jokes in about Kansas now, because he's turning them around and he's going to make them competitive in games. And I think we've watched Kiffin, for example. Look at the job Lane Kiffin has done, the stamp, the identity that he has put on. Look at the identity that he has put on Ole Miss in 2 and I guess a half years now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's coincidental. They have an identity that is tied to a coach and a brand and all of those things, and you see it around the country. I think you look at the job that Kane Womack's done at South Alabama. They were not very good when he got there, and they're really damn competitive now. They almost beat UCLA today, and there's good coaches in the Sun Belt and that kind of thing. I don't know.
Let me ask it this way. Let me ask it this way, and a couple updates here. Again, it's 6:40 p.m. Rippy texts me and says Kansas is beating Houston 42-21 right now.
So they're up 3 scores now.
Yes. 42-21. Let me ask it this way then. Is it that whether it be NIL or coaching or recruiting success and however they do it, because obviously Lane does it a different way than Nick and Jimbo, is it that there are only a few number of teams that can truly put together rosters in the way that makes it different, and it's just created a big mush in the middle, and it's a different situation than it was pre-portal?
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, maybe there's just, like we talked about, maybe there's just 3 teams right now that are truly nationally competitive. Then again, maybe there's more. I mean, look, I don't want to go too far with this, but I mean, I think I know what my eyes see. If I'm Ole Miss, I'm not willing to concede a single game right now on the schedule. Doesn't mean I won't. Doesn't mean I'm going to win them all.
No,
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But going into the year, I was like, well, Alabama's a loss, Texas A&M's a loss. Probably lose one of the other road games, and I don't know that I'm willing to say that today. I mean, today I'd go, Alabama's probably a loss. I'm not going to be the hot take guy that goes just because Alabama played a close game in Texas that the program's falling apart. There's really no side. There's really very little to support that. But I wouldn't concede the Texas A&M game today. I wouldn't concede the LSU game today. I wouldn't concede the Arkansas game today. I wouldn't concede the Egg Bowl, for God's sake. I mean, does it mean they're going to win all those games? Not necessarily, but I mean, like, Ole Miss today's a double-digit favorite against Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, we're going to find out. I mean, we're about to do a 13-day build to this Kentucky game, and Kentucky's legitimately good. I mean, they are. They're beatable, and I think Ole Miss can and very well might beat them. But it's going to be a really big game, and regardless of whether game day is there, or whether the game's at 11 a.m. or 6 p.m. or somewhere in between, it's going to be a really big game. But the winner of that game is going to wake up 5-0, I guess in Kentucky's case, 2-0 in the SEC, in Ole Miss's case, 1-0 in the SEC, and I think very much in the national championship conversation at that point.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, and I don't know what game day is doing or not, but I mean, both those teams today can combine to win 73-0. I mean, they did nothing but continue to enhance whatever resumes.
And I watched some games.
Youngstown State.
And I watched some game day today. I mean, there are not going to be flocks of kids flocking to Boone, North Carolina to play for App State because Lee Corso put a hat on today. It's just not. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it has no impact on the program and it's not a good thing. Blah blah blah.
It's university even more than program.
Yeah,
again, it's not a bad thing, but that doesn't mean it's some revolutionary thing.
Right. I think for Ole Miss that whether game day comes or not does not make that game any bigger or worse.
It's going to be a zoo all week.
It's going to be a zoo all week, and that game's going to be really big. And the winner of that game, whether Lee Corso's in town or not, is going to wake up on Sunday morning in position to do something special. That's the story. The story's not that game day's coming and is Katy Perry coming or who's going to be. No, none of the game. The story is the winner of that game wakes up on that Sunday morning, October the 2nd, with a legitimate reason to think that they're going to do something special. That's the story. And because it makes the next week big and then the next week big. And we get in, potentially, like if Ole Miss wins and then beats Vanderbilt and beats Auburn, I mean, they go to LSU undefeated. And all of a sudden it's a really big game there. And if you win that game, then you go to Texas A&M undefeated. And you know the rest. I mean, to me, that's the story. That's not completely unrealistic whatsoever.
Liberty just dropped a pick. Forced fourth down, but would have dropped a pick. I'm still 50-50 on whether Hugh ends up in the ACC at some point in the next couple of years. I don't believe SEC, but I still feel like the ACC is like this desert enough that somebody will take a chance on him.
Yeah, and I think he'd do a good job. I mean, look, his name's flying around at Auburn. I mean, things are going to fly around this week at Auburn. I mean, let's be real. I think we all know how this story's going to end. And so, his name will pop up there, but they're going to talk about some bigger names first. And at the end of the day, for Hugh, it's simply going to be whether or not someone's willing to believe that all the stuff in his past won't pop up and become a distraction. But he's done a really good job at Liberty. He's made them a really competitive program, even without Malik Willis, and he should be commended for it.
Wake makes a long field goal. It is 23-23 now with about 12 minutes to go in that game.
You know, Wake's probably hit the point where it's hard to get super up for a game against a team like Liberty. And Hugh benefits from that a little bit at Liberty, is that he still catches Power Fives looking ahead.
And especially Power Fives like that aren't crazy talented where they just go win. Like Wake, Wake is not great all 22. They have a good quarterback and they've got a good team and a good system, but they're not putting athletes all over the field that's going to go run by you. And frankly, Hugh signed some 4-stars and some Power 5 level players at Liberty.
And he's landed some guys in the transfer portal, and he's done a good job, you know. And look, he's a good coach. We've seen him. We know what kind of coach he is. It's just a matter of whether he can.
I mean, look, if I could throw a little money in and help Auburn hire Hugh Freeze, that would be fantastic. That'd be great for our business. I mean, please go ahead.
Oh, I mean, sign me up. I mean, I told you if I could draw it up, you know where I'd put him.
You put him in Starkville.
I'd put him in Mississippi State. Yeah, absolutely. From a business standpoint, all day long.
If I'm Hugh, I'll run from Georgia Tech if they offered me a job.
Yeah, I don't know.
That job is in the NIL era. That job is impossible.
I don't know that. Yeah, I was going to say I don't know that job's doable. I mean, they did not have enough athletes on the field to even think about competing with Ole Miss today. And I don't say that to take anything away from Ole Miss, because, again, I thought Ole Miss was really impressive.
I listened to it on Monday. But Jeff Collins told everybody that. He looked at the film and went, no, can't do that.
Well, I mean, you know, Kelly Quinlan gave Georgia Tech no real chance. I mean, I asked him a question. I said, paint me a scenario where he really didn't even bother. To his credit, I mean, you know, I think he knew enough, and he talked about how it was just kind of about surviving the first half of the season, getting into the second half of the season.
They've got that
having a chance
stretch where they might can win a couple games.
Maybe.
You're not thinking that team's going to Blacksburg and routing the Hokies?
No, I mean, they might go to Blacksburg and win, but they suck. I mean, I think they're 3-9. I mean, they looked like a 3-9 team, but. You know, but I've covered Ole Miss teams that played 3-9 type teams, and it was close.
Oh,
and this team that to me, that's what I take away from this game is not, hey, did Ole Miss go destroy a Power 5? Did Ole Miss go destroy some team that's headed to the Orange Bowl? No, of course not. But they took care of business. I mean, there was an assignment in front of them, and they handled it. And they've been doing that a lot lately. And I think at some point you've got to look at the regularity with which a team wins and go, maybe that's who they are. And I think that's where we are with Ole Miss. I think it's time to look at them and quit talking about what happened at the end of the Freeze era or at the, you know, the beginning of or during the Matt Luke time and all that stuff, and just look at them and go, you know what? They're pretty good. This is a pretty good program. This is a program that bounced back pretty good in 2020, had a really strong 2021, and is off to a really strong start in 2022, and is probably a really good football team. And I think that's kind of who they are now, a really strong football program.
Congrats to everybody who took the under today, went under easily, 42 points. Tech had no prayer of helping, getting in the red zone one time.
That was free money.
Entire game. I mean, not even getting close to sniffing.
No, that was free money. I'm kind of mad at myself for not taking it. I mean, that was free. I thought 13 points was an absolute max for Georgia Tech. And with the benefit of hindsight, I'm thinking 3 points was the absolute max for Georgia Tech.
I mean, they could have kicked the field goal when it was 4th and goal, and I guess gotten 3. But that's about it.
A game to keep an eye on. All of a sudden, it's early,
7-0.
Missouri State's up 7. Missouri State up 7-0 and driving early in the second quarter. Arkansas's had a couple of turnovers and fumbled at the 1. It's something to watch. I mean, Arkansas's in this weird spot where they played 2 big games and they've got 2 big games coming, and hard to get kids to believe that a FCS team can come in and beat you.
And Bobby had his guys ready. The Bears were ready.
Oh, sure, they're ready to roll. Yeah, they're going to play emotional football. I wrote in 10 thoughts, not 10 thoughts, but Neil's picks, that I thought this game would be a lot closer than a lot of people did, and here we are.
Missouri State is ranked pretty highly in FCS, or at least they were a couple weeks ago. They beat Central Arkansas 28-14 in the season opener.
Yeah, they're 2-0. Yeah, so interesting.
I mean,
something to keep an eye on.
Sure.
It's still early second quarter, but yeah.
So are you wearing?
It just shows you again. It just shows you again. It's one of the things that makes the sport great. I think is it's an unpredictable sport.
You got green or orange on for tonight?
Oh, I'm wearing green. I'm cheering for my boy Henry. I'm hoping against hope.
You're not very confident. You're starting to wane on me a little bit.
I'm not. It just feels too good to be true, doesn't it? It just feels.
It feels like A&M wins this game like 24-10, and we go, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, right.
He's pulled the quarterback, Max Johnson tonight for the Aggies.
Had some suspensions, some NCAA related stuff. I mean, there are some things going on that make you wonder if the
looks like Wake has recovered a fumble and is about to go in and go up 30-23 on you. I was kind of hoping for a close game late just for the kicks of it.
Missouri State goes up 10-0.
Okay.
So
yeah, A&M has 4 players suspended. Adam says in the stream.
Yeah, 4 freshmen, I think, suspended, the guys who've been playing for them. Little sign that maybe there's some, just kind of cracks in the armor. Not big ones, just little fissures. Pardon the pun. Just something to keep an eye on. Because, going into the year, I mean, you talk about ceilings going into the year, I think there was this consensus thought that A&M was going to be an L for Ole Miss, that they was going to College Station and it was just going to be more than anybody could handle, not anybody not named Alabama, and that A&M was this 10-11 win team, and who knows, and they might go blow Miami out the water tonight. We're having a totally different conversation, but if that's not the case, then suddenly you look at that game in College Station and go, you know what? It wouldn't be that big of an upset. I mean, today, from what I've seen from the two teams, I wouldn't call Ole Miss beating Texas A&M an upset.
No. Grind, I see you in the chat. Sorry about today. Thanks for joining us for a little while.
Well, he predicted it. I mean, he was pretty steadfast in our stream and in my stream with Tyler on Thursday that he said Auburn would lose by at least 2 scores. And, I mean, whether that was him hedging emotionally or not, he was right.
Kind of what night Jay's having in his show.
Oh, I think we can suspect what that night was. We've been there. We've done that.
Done that show.
You know what that night's like. We've done that show. You know what that show's like. I mean, look, it is what it is for them. I mean, you lose by 29 points to Penn State at home, and people are gonna scream for blood. And I suspect they're gonna get it, Chase. I mean, I've been around them for a while.
Arkansas is going to win that game like 27-13 or something, but you got to think there's probably a few tied rectums in Reynolds Razorback Stadium going, please God in hell, don't let this happen tonight, and please God, don't let this happen to Bobby Petrino.
Oh, sure.
Like, right now is the moment when they all look over at their wives and go, oh God, oh.
Oh yeah, no, it'd be a nightmare for them to lose that game. But getting off to a really slow start against them is pretty predictable. They'll probably, like you said, they'll probably be okay. It's an SEC team against an FCS team. If Pittman didn't have their attention before the game, he's probably got it now.
Sure.
But these things can get weird on you. It's if you don't kind of respond and jump back, those kind of games come back to get super tight. And you get super tight, anything can happen late in the game.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt got a good win today at Northern Illinois.
They did. The freshman quarterback was pretty good.
All jokes aside, I think I thought for them to go up there and play well was a good sign for them.
Yeah.
Tennessee's off to a fast start today against Akron, which is to be expected. But I think Tennessee's proving to be they're pretty legit.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee and Florida next week, shaping up to be a pretty fun game.
Sure. Your column's up at rebelgrove.com. We're back on Monday with a normal week leading up to, I guess, Tulsa, but we're going to start talking Kentucky pretty quickly, I feel like. So we'll do that. But safe trip back tomorrow, and we'll catch up.
All right, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Was Neil McCready there on the Rafters Music and Food Hotline. I was having a hard time finding the hang up button, which is not going to be a good sign for later on tonight. I probably need to know what that is. Could not locate it, but we'll call Brian in a minute. Get his take. I'm gonna go over some stats and stuff too. I've got those up, so we'll do that on a different screen also here today. Let me get this back. Mississippi State and OSU back started with the second half. State has the ball to start. 13-7 Bulldogs here early on. Yeah, it looks pretty comfortable for State right now. They had a couple bad plays here on this opening possession. They did not get into LSU territory, so we'll see what the Tigers do with their first possession out of the break. But not ideal there. That's what I'm saying. You look around the league, and everybody seems susceptible to these type of games. Frankly, Ole Miss doesn't for a couple of reasons. I mean, A, the quarterback play is good enough, and B, their defense and their running game just doesn't allow it. I mean, App State happened last week because of Jimbo. App State's good, but it happened because of Jimbo. His play calling was horrid. He didn't let his quarterback do what actually benefited the quarterback the most. I mean, I'm telling you, I mean, it's not to the level that like Chip Kelly is, where Chip Kelly is just completely out of date and beyond at this point from college football. I think Chip Kelly is an incredibly overrated coach at this point of his tenure. This is not the Chip Kelly that was at Oregon. But I think Jimbo, from a game day management standpoint, is trending in that direction. I just really do. I think that's kind of where we are with this thing. Call Brian now and let him talk a little bit. I want to talk to him about Jackson Dart, because at this point we can't talk about it all enough. The targeting call, Memphis Rebel asking about the targeting call today. By the textbook definition and the rule, it was the correct call. But if you're the referee, you just don't throw the flag there, because Troy Brown, there's nothing he could have done. He turned his body sideways and stopped moving. I mean, what else can you do as a defender? And I get that the receiver was defenseless, but his feet had come down. He was in the process of trying to make a football move. I honestly, I don't know what anything else Troy could have done at that point. It sort of baffled me that that's where that was, because I just did not think that was targeting with anything that you see with your eyes, where you actually think that's what's going to happen. But, here's the deal. In some ways, it just made sure Troy didn't get hurt and move on to next week, because him playing more plays did no good for anybody today. He doesn't need the reps. He's going to be okay.
What's up?
How you doing?
Pretty good. How about you?
Oh, I'm hanging in. I'm all right. A few different things here today. Let's start with this. I mean, you sat down with Brandon Dart for a really long time. You wrote the big feature on Dart. You, at least from what his history is, what to kind of expect, what his family expects from him, what did you kind of make it today? Because it's very clear, looking back at the week, you had these sources. We had heard, I think you heard before we did, but even later in the week, we had heard as well, meaning Neil and myself, that Dart took pretty much all the reps. Altmaier was either not taking first-team reps because of that, or not taking many reps at all because of his injury at this point. It was very clear it was completely Dart's show today. I don't think there was any doubt about that from any level. And then I'm not making too much out of him celebrating with teammates or running over the defensive back or anything else. But when you look at just his leadership ability, the way that he was interacting with teammates throughout the game, he was coaching and helping and learning. And, I mean, every time they showed anything with him on the field or on the sidelines, he's in somebody's ear, somebody's in his ear. He takes the pounding from Lane at halftime when he was just all over him after the interception. He took it over where, frankly, we're wasting our time if we don't just admit this is Jackson Dart's football team.
Yeah, I think you described that pretty well. And I thought today's performance was kind of pretty vintage 19-year-old Jackson Dart, I guess. I guess vintage is maybe the wrong word for it, but pretty much what you would expect, right? You saw some of the, a couple of throws that he made that you wonder how many quarterbacks in the country that can make. And then you saw some pretty rudimentary mistakes coupled by one pretty terrible decision that almost gave Lane Kiffin an aneurysm there right before halftime with the interception when he was rolling out to the right side of the field. And that's kind of what he is as a player right now. And then I guess speaking to the other piece of it regarding, you mentioned celebrating and kind of always, in someone's ear or vice versa, that just from talking to, his dad and a couple other people that just seem to be kind of on brand with who he is. I mean, look, at first I won't lie, when I was doing kind of reporting some of that story, I was like, all right, look, I get it. Like, the kid's a good leader. I thought at first it was kind of maybe being shoved in my face a little bit to like, hey, he's a good kid, he's a leader. But then the more and more I got into it and kind of the smaller anecdotes, it became more genuine, and I started to believe it as something real more so than just something you say about a pretty high-profile recruit. I think he just enjoys playing football. I think he enjoys making friends playing football. And I think because of a lot of maybe the lack of attention he got as a prospect, which I kind of chronicled in pretty good detail, if anyone listening, I guess, read that story, was like the lack of attention he got. I don't think he became like this brand and this high-profile recruit with all of these different wheels spinning and everything that comes with being a modern-day quarterback prospect. He just really didn't have any of that. I mean, look, he didn't really get upgraded to a four-star recruit till mid-October of his senior year. He didn't have a Power 5 offer until Game 3. He didn't really get that normal courtship, and not to mention, that was all going on during a global pandemic, so you're not going to campuses and things like that. And so, in a way, it kind of allowed him to just play a child's game like a kid in some ways, right? And there's not, all of the extracurriculars. I think I juxtaposed it in the story with Caleb Williams and him having his own website, and literally the website calling himself the first high-profile free agent in college football history, NIL deal with a private equity firm in Beverly Hills, that type of stuff. He just didn't have a ton of that. And, I think him having fun playing football is kind of what he always went back to. Maybe when he wasn't getting the attention, and then when some of the dysfunction around him was happening that largely wasn't his fault, I think that's kind of what he defaulted on. And I think you probably saw some of that today. I didn't think it was a perfect performance by any means, but I thought he played pretty well. And, between the kind of truck stick he hit there at the end and the celebrating and all that, personality-wise, I think you kind of saw what he is as a person on the football field, if that makes sense.
We're doing that thing where I have to make sure I'm not being lazy, and I don't want to do the Matt Corral comparisons because he's his own guy. But from a standpoint of what he looks like now versus Matt at his age, to the way he's running, to the way that he just sort of plays the game, there are lots of similarities, and I'm going to be really careful because in a lot of ways it's not fair to Jackson. But it's similar enough given where they are in their processes as second-year players that it's almost bringing like this baseball thing out in me where I had to spend the entire baseball season not comparing Hunter Elliott to Doug Nikhazy because he was left-handed, wore 26, and looked like him. You know what I mean? Like, there's lots of stuff there where, Dart's his own dude, but he is leading in a very similar way that Corral did. And I think that this is going to sound stupid, so maybe I hadn't workshopped this, and we're just doing a post-game show, whatever. So I guess it's a podcast tomorrow. But in some ways, I feel like it's the quarterback game that the returning players are used to for Ole Miss, and in some odd way, I think it actually sort of enhances the ability to have some continuity despite having all these new players. I think that they're seeing the same type of quarterback as Corral, from boisterous and running and just a really aggressive leadership style of football. And then in some ways, there's a familiarity to it too that might help Ole Miss as the season plays out.
Yeah, I think there's something to that as well. They're both kind of dudes on the football field, right? They enjoy the smaller aspects and kind of the dirtier, grittier aspects without going too fully cliche, but like I'd use a contrasting example. I don't mean to use a bad example here, but like Shea Patterson wouldn't qualify him as a dude's dude on the football field. Jordan Ta'amu kind of led in a different, quieter way type of thing. And so you're right. They have similar personality traits in how they play football and kind of the boisterous leadership and not scared to lower your shoulder and take a hit, probably to a fault sometime. A little bit of that gunslinger mentality. Their personality traits as quarterbacks are the same, I think, is what you're getting at. And, it's obviously, as you mentioned, it's kind of important to distinguish that, it's unfair to compare them as, players and careers and all that. But the way they go about their, job on a football field, I think, is very similar. And I do think that probably creates some sort of continuity. When you lose a crucial piece of the program that Matt Corral was, I think it makes it probably slightly easier.
Missouri State now up 17-0 on the Hogs.
That just made its way to the main TV. I moved State LSU to the
What
to the
channel
other
are
one
we
here.
on for this? Is it just ESPN streaming?
So I'm all streaming. I don't have any cable anymore. Yeah, as it's gone to commercial, this is ESPN Plus. So this is not mainstream.
Okay.
This is not mainstream television. But hey, 17-0's real.
There is something to that.
Arkansas is
When
good.
it gets to 3 scores, that thing's real because Arkansas suddenly is going to go into morgue level freaked out. I was talking to Neil about this. I mean, it's 17-0. They're all looking around going, "Oh hell, what is happening right now to us?"
And they don't move the football like, I think of 2010 Cam Newton where, I remember them getting down 24-7 in the Iron Bowl. And it's like, this is not over by any stretch. Or, Mahomes and the Chiefs, to use a different example in the NFL. Arkansas is a good offense, and I really like K.J. Jefferson as a quarterback, but they don't move the football like that. They don't really have as many quick, explosive, 45, 50-yard chunk plays, particularly through the passing game. And so, I don't know. Maybe Bobby Petrino will get one more win in that stadium. Who knows? I mean, it's real at this point. You're halfway through the second quarter, and it's 17-0. And they just not just forced a 3-and-out, but before that score, they look pretty salty on defense.
Yeah, I'm gonna go find it and move it over on my main TV. I've got a couple other devices going with games, but I think that's probably where that's headed for a minute. I mean, at the same time, you got Liberty tying Wake Forest with a few minutes to go in the game.
Good for you.
Yes, Russ.
Good win.
Tulane did beat Kansas State. I'm repping my wave tonight. They pulled it off in Manhattan today.
Wow, good for them. Kansas State was supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, hammered Missouri last week, but didn't hammer Tulane today. So just saying. I still contend, and I know Ole Miss has got them on future schedules. You play Tulane every other year, and you play them in New Orleans every time. You don't need them to come to Oxford. You just give your fans a New Orleans Baton Rouge trip every season. Which every year you don't go to Baton Rouge, just play Tulane and go down there. This isn't complicated.
I like it. Wasn't the last time that happened the week after Jacksonville State?
They went in 12 too. Bo's first year.
Okay.
Right. They went.
I remember.
They went in 10 and 12.
Okay. You could tell me anything about that game, and I would believe it. I don't remember anything about that game, so I'll take your word for it. But wow,
because Bo, if I'm not mistaken, Bo hurt his shoulder in his first season as quarterback by trying to run over a Tulane linebacker in the game. Now.
Okay, that seems on brand.
Yeah, I think that's what happened because 2010 was the Masoli Stanley thing, and then that was 2012. Got stats up
Thing
here.
is one way to describe it.
Well, that's fair. Zach Evans, 18 carries today, 134 yards. He had 2 targets but did not have a catch in the receiving game. Went for a long of 26. I've got the stats up for anybody on the postgame show. They can see kind of what I'm reading here. But Evans goes crazy. He was really, really good. I mean, that one cut back with his vision was some elite NFL kind of stuff there out of him. He was pissed when they took him out of the game to let Judkins get his second touchdown. He's wanting the ball nonstop. You talked to Zach for his bio with the NIL stuff. You've probably talked to him more than any media member has at this point, frankly, if we're just being real. What do you sort of make of the energy that he has shown through 3 games? Because he's a dude that he's playing for a contract, but that cat, we always heard, hey, he's worried about his usage. No, that dude wants the damn football.
Yeah, I think that's a more accurate way to describe it for sure. He's a different cat. He's not a dumb kid. He's a smart kid at all. Not that anyone I guess I don't mean to insinuate you think he's dumb, but he's a really bright kid.
He's been flighty, but he's not stupid. No, he's very, very, very bright.
Yeah, he's a very bright kid. And I think it's with some of the stuff in the recruitment. I think he's maybe a little more private than a lot of these kids coming out of high school, and I think that probably led into some of it. Look, a lot of that, again, from what I understand, was self-induced to some degree, but I guess my point is there's probably some stuff that went into that high school recruitment that maybe not necessarily got overblown, but wasn't fully understood. And he's a different kid, but he's a smart guy, and yeah, he wants the football. I may have used this example on the post-game show before, but I asked him something at the end. It's kind of one of those canned questions that they want for the NIL thing, and I just said, what makes you different from other running backs? He said, I don't know that many other running backs that make their own holes, and that was just the end of his answer. And I was like, okay. Through 3 games, that's kind of been true. You described it well. The quickness that coupled with the vision makes for a really, really dangerous running back, and their running back room as a whole is just really, really good behind a really good run-blocking offensive line. And, not to parlay it into everything else, but if you look at this team as a whole, that coupled with the way they play defense travels anywhere. And I don't know what the ceiling with this team is, but, what they have in the running back room, the way they run the football, that carries over well. You can go play pretty much anywhere doing that and have a chance. And, I heard you talking to Neil before saying he wouldn't concede any game if he were Ole Miss. I tend to agree with that. I don't know if they'll win all of them, but I would give them a chance in every game they play left on the schedule.
Yeah, it's what made today. Georgia Tech sucks, but it's also what made today foolproof for Ole Miss, where they weren't going to be one of these teams that struggle with the inferior opponent, because when you can run the ball like that and your quarterback just does enough, and then you play defense and you don't let anybody breathe, there was no recipe for that game to be competitive. And you saw it. I tweeted about it early on. Lane and Ole Miss and Weiss, or whoever was doing all the play calling, they did not respect Tech at all from a run defense standpoint. They ran it and got it on 3rd and 9. They ran it on 3rd and 16. They ran it on 3rd and 20. They picked up all these different things. They were just going to run the damn thing every time because they didn't think that they could stop them 3 times in a row before somebody blew an assignment or they just created some gaping hole. For a team that tries to be, I don't know if balance is the right word, because I think you can get stupid when you focus on balance in the way that just straight 50-50. But you want to mix it up. You want to be efficient. They ran the ball on 26 of the first 30 plays in a game where they knew they probably needed to see a little bit out of the quarterback to see what it looked like going into the next week. They just knew, by God, they could not be stopped, and that's what they were going to do.
I think today was a reflection of the turnaround Lane Kiffin has had through 2.5 years and kind of the culture that he's building and built, right? This team clearly has an identity. They play really good defense, and they run the football well. And, I get it. Georgia Tech's not good. I had a guy on from SB Nation on the podcast earlier this week, and he's big into some of the advanced analytics. I think he kind of runs some of his own models. And, beyond all the nerd stuff, he was like, look, this team's staring 3-9 straight in the face until they prove me wrong. So I get that they're not good, but it's the fact that you go over there, to an ACC school in their building and never really struggle at all. And really the game was never in doubt from the opening snap. And it's even the stuff late in the game. They have third stringers in there making plays you look at and you're like, oh, that's Clowney. Oh, I can't think of another example, but guys like in the Matt Luke era, they're kind of pitched as, pillars and cornerstones of the program are depth pieces at this point. And that may not be the perfect example to use, but I think that's another part of it. And, if you talk about the culture aspect, Lane was still coaching his ass off through the final whistle. There was some kind of miscommunication on a handoff or one of those little forward pitch plays at the end. And he did the same bend down to his knees thing he did when Corral got hurt at Auburn last year. And it was just funny to watch because right under where he's bending down, it says 42-0 with 4 minutes left. And he's very much as invested. And then he just casually kind of walks off the field, saunters off and went about his business. But I think him kind of coaching through, the final whistle of the 60th minute, I think that's kind of an embodiment of what he's built. And I thought today was more of that than anything, right? They should have won the game, but the fact that they just went in and completely dominated is a sign of what he's building and what he's built. And it's pretty impressive. It's a pretty quick turnaround. People forget that. 2020 seems like a long time ago, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, Marine Rebel, thanks for the Super Chat. He says, is Ole Miss that good or is Georgia Tech that bad? Look, Tech sucks, but Ole Miss made them look as absolutely as bad as they are or worse. I mean, Tech gave Clemson a game for 2.5 quarters and frustrated them and really frustrated DJ, whatever his name is, and moved the ball a little bit. And I mean, did some things. And, I don't know how good Ole Miss is on their front four. I think that's still a question a little bit defensively, or front three, depending on what kind of front they're in. But they got after Jeff Sims today. He started seeing ghosts. I mean, that cat was moving his feet and worried about where everybody was, the way he was getting hit and pressured, and the way that he didn't have time to kind of execute that offense. He already didn't have the ability to throw the ball down the field. The matchups favored Ole Miss in every way. But Sims ends up 18 of 32 for 161, but it was the most uncompetitive 18 for 32 for 161 that I've seen. Tech runs 34 times for 53 yards. That's it. They average 1.6 yards per carry. Ole Miss flying around the football defensively. I do think Tech is like that, but when you look at Ole Miss, they're just showing up. I mean, they've been a little robotic for 3 games as far as defense not allowing anything, and I do think they're potentially that good. I mean, look, it's a huge game in 2 weeks. They play Kentucky. We're going to say huge game 15 more times probably before the show's over, and definitely over the course of the next week. But Ole Miss is better in the run game and better on defense than Florida is. And it's in Oxford. I mean, I think Ole Miss is a favorite in that game right now. Kentucky has had some offensive line issues. Now, they're really, really good defensively. Kentucky's really good defensively. But Anthony Richardson made a lot of his own mistakes. There was some just unforced errors there today. And if Jackson Dart is now, Kentucky made him look bad, so I'll give that to it a little bit. But if Dart looks like what Richardson looked like last week, Lane is going to pull every bit of his hair out and be yelling and throwing clipboards at everybody at the end of that game. I mean, when I look at it, it's not the worst matchup in the world for the Rebels. They can lose the game for damn sure, but it's not a bad matchup.
No, it's not, and I don't think Kentucky's faced defensively some of the a running attack like Ole Miss and kind of that physical front that they can offer. And it's worth mentioning that Ole Miss, I mean, Kentucky has a couple. I don't know if Smith and Jones are starting, but heavy contributors that kind of not completely got processed, but kind of got squeezed out of playing time at Ole Miss, right? I mean, I don't think that's completely irrelevant in this conversation. But you're right when it comes to the quarterback. And kind of to bring it back to that, I think Buchanan has bought into the second part-time career as an MPW podcaster. He called me twice during the game after like a dart throw or whatever, and once was as the interception happened. I think he was at a bar by himself. I don't really know what Buchanan had going on today, but he was having a good day. But he was, it was interesting listening, like talking to him through like 2 or 3 drives while I have him on the phone and some of the stuff he notices. And there was some good stuff Dart did and some bad stuff. I heard you and Neil talking about the throw where it was kind of like the reverse bootleg out of the pistol where he just kind of slung it and it ended up being grounding or a sack. Like Buchanan pointed out to me is like one of the extra like easiest mistakes he made on that is apparently the way that play set up, if it's the 2 linebackers or the end or whatever kind of come hard at you, you get rid of it immediately. And beyond trying to throw it away, even trying to extend that play further right is apparently a pretty rookie mistake on that kind of concept. And I think they can live with stuff like that, but that's sort of indicative of the trying to do too much, trying to keep everything alive type thing. And, of course, the interception was as well. And if they can get that portion of it out of him or reined back to some degree and just let the game come to him more, they can live with the inaccuracies on a couple of the deep balls and the missed throws. You just can't have the back-breaking mistakes because of everything we just talked about, right? The defense and the running game will keep you in every game. You just can't have those back-breaking mistakes off of terrible decisions.
Just think of the wide receivers today. I know they're not getting crazy separation. I know it's nothing necessarily flashy or anything. By the way, Liberty is down 1 and is going to go for or potentially go for 2 with a minute left.
Wow.
But Mingo has played incredibly well. I thought Heath was good today. They finally got Watkins involved a little bit. Look, it's not the elite. It's not Dawson and DK and AJ out there. But they're also not dropping the football. Mingo is going up and really playing well from a body control, point of contact, point of catch standpoint. They're not bad. They're just not elite. They're a completely adequate receiving core.
Yeah, and it was a quiet day for Michael Trigg too. But I think what speaks to that is Jalen Robinson. I don't know what his deal was, but I saw Nick Suss report that he wasn't dressed out. So obviously he was missing for some sort of injury. And not that the passing game was anything over the top, but they didn't really miss a beat. And he's been a pretty integral part of the offense through 2 games as far as being out there as a receiver. And you juxtapose that to last year, whereas I know that it hurt already that they lost Mingo early in the year, but you remember they went out, they lost Drummond in that Auburn game, and it was like, who are they going to throw to? I remember trying to look at the roster when they were like, Corral would throw to someone down the field in the second half, and I was like, wait, who is that? Which one of the Jacksons was that? Like, it got really bare when they lost 1 or 2 guys because that's all they really had. And so I think, to your point, they're not dynamic there, but I think they have more SEC caliber-ish receivers than they did a year ago. And so, if you're not going to be dynamic, at least not be thin at that position. And I think they have enough depth to be more than adequate, if that makes sense.
Stephen, thanks for Super Chat as always. Good to see you. I know you'll be shocked by this, but Freeze ran a trick play for the 2-point conversion and didn't get it.
I was about to ask if it worked. That's shocking. That will. Well, I don't think he ran that. I think an assistant ran that. So that'll be someone else's fault.
That was not his play call at this point, was it?
Headset miscommunication had to be. Now, if it would have worked, that's something he had in the bag all week.
Yeah, I mean, Malik Heath went 4 for 78 today. It's fine.
He's pretty good. He's a good receiver.
I have a hunch when I go back and watch the game again tomorrow that if we can get the camera for this, I mean, we don't have an all-22. Ole Miss didn't need to throw the ball, and I don't think Ole Miss, they have not gotten a lot of separation down the field as the games have gone on, or the weeks have gone on, but I do think that intermediate, short to medium passing game probably was there, and they just didn't use it because I think they were physical enough off the line of scrimmage and so much more athletic than Georgia Tech that they probably could have thrown 8 to 10-yard passes all day long.
Do you need a ton more than that with the way they run the ball and the way they play defense? Like, they'll be able to scheme guys open, even if they have struggled to create separation. And, again, they don't have to be dynamic. They just have to be kind of good in the passing game and not turn it over. I kind of agree with you there. I think they'll be fine there. And I think the more and more Trigg kind of gets ingratiated in this offense, I think that'll change the calculus a bit if he becomes a consistent threat over the middle of the field. I think this is a pretty complete team when you gauge it by Ole Miss's, what they've had for the last 7 or 8 years. I don't really know what that means, but everything seems to kind of fall in place. Now all eyes are on whether, number 2 can handle things at quarterback. And it sets up for a fun and entertaining fall. It will certainly be fascinating if nothing else. I couldn't begin to know how to predict it, but yeah, I think the receivers are going to be fine. I think they'll be okay in the passing game, and, we'll see how far that takes them, I think.
Dart protecting the football is everybody's number 1 question, I think, moving forward. What's your number 2 question about this team that we don't know yet?
Ooh. Part of me wants to say pass blocking because some of that had been pedestrian. Now, that looked a little bit better today. But I guess I'll go with what happens when a team that's really, really physical runs at them for 4 quarters. I thought the linebackers played pretty well today for the most part. It's unfortunate for that they had the targeting ejection with Troy Brown, but I think that's it. What happens when a really physical team, you may get that in Kentucky, right, particularly if they have Chris Rodriguez back. Can they hold up with that? I think the defensive line will be fine. I think there's enough depth there, but, what does that actually look like? I think that's probably my number 2 question with this team.
Yes, Ole Miss would beat Wake Forest. They would out-athlete Wake Forest. I've seen enough for that one. And all seriousness, Neil said it, though. Credit to Vanderbilt. I mean, they are finding wins everywhere where they have a possibility for a win.
They hit their
done a good
over-under
job
for win total in week 3.
Was it 2.5?
Their over-under was 2.5.
Wow.
Which good for them. If he can find a way to get to 4 and 8 or 5 and 7, I know it sounds crazy, but to me that's kind of a remarkable.
But nothing's
success.
left other than Missouri, right?
Yes,
because they're not beating Alabama, Ole Miss, or anybody else. Well, they could beat South Carolina.
They could. But, like, if they have – well, they have to have one more non-conference game, don't they?
They lost to Wake.
Oh, that's right. You're correct. So, and they had the week 0. That's what threw me off. That screwed me up a couple of times. You're correct. So they're 3-1. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, look, they get Florida at home. I'm not saying they would win that game. But, look, if they actually kind of have better players, which it looks like they do, than they've had the last 2 years, if you catch Missouri or South Carolina on the wrong night, I know this sounds insane, but even Tennessee at the end of the year, like if you don't play well, I feel like they could hang around in a game you never know and it gets weird. Now that you say that, would I predict them to win any of the remaining games on their schedule? That would be an emphatic no. But if they beat Mizzou and South Carolina, would it stun me and maybe scared the hell out of a Florida or Tennessee? That wouldn't shock me. I mean, they're not completely incompetent like they've looked from 2020 on.
I'm starting to get a little scared that Neil is going to get his complete and utter gloat fest on that Monday if they beat Missouri. They can beat Missouri.
I mean, Missouri was the last score I saw of that Abilene Christian game was 34-17. I don't know a thing about Abilene Christian, but I mean, and them not being competitive at Kansas State, I thought was telling. Who just lost to Tulane. So yeah, I'm with you there. I could see Neil getting his gloat fest.
Anything else today stick out? You've watched more football overall than I have today.
No, I mean this Kentucky game's Arkansas game is getting weird. They're going to be down 2 scores at halftime. It looks like. Missouri State has the football again. Yeah, that's getting weird. We're set up for a good finish, and then nothing else has really stunned me. I don't think. The Nebraska interim coach thing was a nice storyline to get the Big Noon Saturday ratings up, but my God, that was non-competitive. And then I'm looking forward to Miami A&M tonight. I took A&M in Neil's picks, which probably guarantees a Miami outright victory with the way that's been going. But you get 4 suspensions late on top of the what's been a weird week with kids that have been playing. How does A&M respond tonight? I'm very curious to find that out, as well as watch this LSU Mississippi State finish. Hey, sneaky good college football Saturday.
It's been fine. Yeah, the early games were a snooze fest, but I feel like we've had some good stuff since then, even though I missed, I guess, what was the better part of a lot of that because I was not around for the end of Troy and App State and some of that stuff. So I think I've missed some of the better versions of some of what's going on. But yeah, it's 16-10 right now. Mississippi State over LSU, 3 minutes or so to go in the third quarter. In that one, it's my one issue is I don't have cable. I stream off Hulu Live, and it puts me about a play and a half behind a lot of people in the stream. So that's the I had the same problem actually talking to Buchanan. He would react, and then I would watch the play about 2.5 seconds later. Yeah. So it was like my own real-time instant replay. Yes, I mean I can't guarantee he was number 2. But I think he was, yes. Elijah Drinkwitz was most likely the Ole Miss head coach had Lane not taken the job. That is true.
boy, would have that turned out differently.
We were having a different conversation right now. Especially if Lane had gone to Arkansas.
Yeah, that would be a much, much different conversation. I would have looked forward to kind of trying to find the deep dive of how many people stuffed Drinkwitz in a locker in junior high and how they feel about that now.
Is Florida struggling with South Florida tonight?
I have not seen that score.
Okay.
That's telling if that's the case. It is, 10-7. Now, granted, second quarter, but USF does have the football. 10-7, 13 minutes left in the second quarter.
Okay. Both teams going for it on 4th down in the third quarter, State and LSU back-to-back.
I was wondering, every time I look up, I feel like Mississippi State has the football somehow.
State's called timeout here. I don't know what I'd do. I hate to punt from the 43. But at the same freaking time, I hate to give LSU any kind of short field when they can't move the football.
Their offense is horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just...
absolutely horrid.
I don't know. Anyway. Okay. Anything else from today? From the Ole Miss game, sorry, before I let you go?
Not really, other than Georgia's by far the best team in the country. Look, I don't know what anyone thinks of Oregon or how you should evaluate it, but they did beat the 12th ranked team in the country by like 3 scores today, and Georgia made that non-competitive. They look like a well-oiled machine. They maybe have taken the place of Alabama in terms of
That
like,
damn
oh God, they're
tight
going to
end.
kill everyone. Yeah, Bowers.
Yeah.
I mean, how I know they're having problems with Eric Gilbert again, but yeah, I mean Bowers and whatever the kid's name behind him, it's something else. It's something to behold.
Yeah, Lane having to turn around and be happy about the Woo Pig Suey, I feel like would be quite the Nita cartoon bubble.
I mean, can you imagine if you had to take a picture with that hog they carry around in that cage? He'd be taking a picture and they'd turn around like, did it poop again? Is someone going to clean that up? Like, I mean, I get he has to deal with juice.
We would get a lot of like really good
cage.
like Lane in a wild boar photo, wouldn't we?
Oh yeah, that thing with its tusks out, rolling around in some slop, and then Kiffin's like on the other side of the bars, looking like his dog just died or something. That kind of face. That would be good content.
Yeah. All right, bud. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Was Brian Rippey here with you now. I'll open up the lines, let you guys call in if you'd like to talk a little bit. Get watching Mississippi State and LSU at the moment in this one. Liberty loses to Wake Forest, so Dave Clawson and the Demon Deacons pull that out over Hugh. Yeah, I'm sticking with State and LSU right now just because it's in the third quarter. I will turn on Missouri State and Arkansas later if it's in the second half and still competitive or close or whatever it is, but I'm not going there yet. Number is up. If anybody wants to call and chat. (662-259-7556) is the number. You can only use the number through one account, so Neil and I have different numbers for. Rippy and Ryan are not doing live stream. I mean, I'm sure we could get that figured out. We could do that if anybody wanted to do it, but we are not currently doing that. I'm sure we could get them fired up, though. That would not be hard. YouTube makes it pretty easy to work that out. Yeah, I mean, Lane wanted Ole Miss over Arkansas. I do think he would have taken either, but that's what he wanted. Who we got on the line?
Hey, this is Mark from DC.
Hey,
Am I the first caller?
Yeah, you are. What's going on?
Sweet. First time ever. Awesome. So, I guess 2 questions. So, if you had to pick a line between Ole Miss and Kentucky as of right now, I'm kind of thinking it would be Ole Miss by about 3 or 4, roughly. And I'm watching the LSU Mississippi State game. LSU's quarterback is just hot garbage, missing open receivers, just horrible. I mean, State is really not that good. I think Ole Miss matches up pretty well with State. I mean, theoretically, Ole Miss, if we beat Kentucky, literally, I know y'all talked about this too, but I mean, we could start 7-8-0.
Yes. Sorry, by the way, Daniel. I'm not aware of Dart hurting himself. Rippy pointed that out to me that he did look like the knee buckled a little bit, but I've seen nothing about there being any injury. I mean, you guys, you've heard Lane talk before I have, so if there's something there, great. No, look, I would think I'm going to go Ole Miss -2, as I think where I would put it right now. Again,
So on the neutral side, you think Kentucky would be favored by a point?
I don't know that I think they necessarily do that completely, the whole 3-point thing all the way on both sides. But, yeah, I think it's close to that just because they have that win over Florida. I mean, perception or not, they have the better win right now because when you look at Ole Miss, I mean,
So
again,
who
I
has
get
the
that we're doing a lot of
roster?
transitive property stuff, but they still have beaten Troy, Central Arkansas, and Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I understand that. So who do you think has the better roster? Because I think Ole Miss has the better roster, top to bottom. Kentucky may have the better quarterback, which obviously that's kind of a trump card, but I think Ole Miss has the better overall roster.
I think both teams' defenses are better than the other team's offenses potentially, and that it is
Agree.
up to whichever one, the Ole Miss offense with its run game or the
Oh wow,
Kentucky
State just muffed
balance
the punt
can
and gave LSU a first and goal.
see that. Yeah, it just now popped on my screen. Yeah, I think the offenses are deciding this football game. I think it's can Ole Miss run, and basically can Ole Miss stop the run and force Levis into needing to absolutely win the game without a run game. Because look, Levis makes these great plays. He's this great NFL prospect. I get all that. I'm not discounting that. He can also kind of throw it and be erratic a little bit. I mean, it's it's almost going to be a game where Levis and Dart both are trying to not make that one critical error that screws everything up.
So if you had to predict it now, and I know we're 2 weeks away, how would you lean?
I'll give Ole Miss a slight advantage because it's at home.
So basically, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a coin flip. I mean, I think it's a really freaking close game. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about that. I think I think it is going to be an atmosphere that is as high is contested as it can be. Maybe not Alabama 14. Like, I understand that's a different level.
That was going to be my next question. How was it going to compare to Alabama 14? So would it compare to A&M last year?
I think it's very similar to A&M last year. Yes, I think you're talking about an environment in 2 weeks that's very similar to A&M last year, which is, considering that was in November and this is on October 1st. This has a higher pound for pound.
Yeah, I was at the game in 14 with my dad back when I had season tickets and I lived in Oxford, but now I live in D.C. I haven't been to a game in probably 2-3 years because, quite frankly, I can watch every game on TV right in front of. I mean, I got a 70-inch TV in my basement, and why spend $2,000 to get tickets for me and the wife and all that stuff? So I can watch every game on TV, and there's no point in going to games when you can, like I said, watch it on TV. But I mean, yeah, Alabama in 14 is probably the number one for me as far as actually being at the game. But then A&M last year, I mean, just seeing it on TV, the crowd was electric. So if it's anything like if it's say in between there or even A&M last year, I mean, I think that gives Ole Miss a pretty just an advantage, like a mental advantage. I mean, Kentucky. I mean, granted they played Florida on the road. I don't think Florida's as good as what Ole Miss is. And I mean, granted they've had really good recruiting classes, but it's a first-year coach, and you know how that is. But yeah, being at home, I kind of, like you said, favor Ole Miss, but a lot can happen in 2 weeks.
It's becoming a bigger game by the minute because we already knew that if Ole Miss won, they were going to be 6-0 playing Auburn, and we knew they'd be ranked whatever, and it changed the overall scope of the season going into the second half. But now it's changing what you think moving forward. It's that can you get to that, then you're 6-0, but then Auburn sucks, so are you 7-0? And then LSU is kind of throwing off all over itself, and are you 8-0? You know what I mean? Like, you start going down the thing and you go, well, hell, I mean, there's it. Look, do I think? I mean, look, Ole Miss could lose to Kentucky. Ole Miss could lose in Baton Rouge. I mean, sure, like stuff happens. I mean, they could win them, or they could lose them. But you can at least convince yourself, without complete mental gymnastics, that you've got Ole Miss and Alabama on November the 12th in just one monster of a damn football game.
Yeah, whereas if Ole Miss is undefeated, you're looking at Alabama at 2, Ole Miss at probably 5, 6 maybe. But speaking of this Auburn kind of reminds me of 2012 Auburn, like when they just implode and go 2-10.
Look, I still think they're okay defensively, but Penn State really wore them out today. When your quarterback play is bad, you are susceptible every single week to getting run out like that. Yeah, and that's where they are right now. Yeah. And it's what's keeping LSU from winning this game at the moment because their quarterback play is just atrocious. They're staying in the game everywhere
State's
else,
not
but their
that
quarterback
good.
play is terrible.
I mean, State's okay. I mean, they're pretty good defensively. I mean,
State's fine. They're good. They're fine. They're good.
I think Ole Miss beats State by 2 touchdowns if they play tomorrow.
Ole Miss is a touchdown favorite at least. Yeah, I agree with that.
At a minimum, games in Oxford. Yeah, I mean it's. I don't think it's that close. Because I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss has a lot better roster. I mean, Ole Miss, especially, I mean, well, granted, there's complete overhaul on defense, but I think Ole Miss's roster is better than what it was last year, especially on the defensive side. We have a lot more depth. That depth, I think, is going to come is really key in the second half of the season.
we still don't know where Ole Miss is going to get the superstar plays outside of the running backs that are going to go win football games. But yes, they are. They are Ole Miss from a roster standpoint of straight SEC level depth. Now, does this mean you win every game? No, because it takes superstars to win football games. But 1 to 85, this is the most SEC players on one roster of any Ole Miss team I've covered since 2005. And I mean, I started in 2005, not that 05 had more.
I'll hang up on this question. Mm-hmm. So, if Matt Corral somehow miraculously could have come back to Ole Miss win a national title with his roster,
I'm not going to go that far, but yeah, I think they would. I think they would be the legitimate even with Alabama in the West. I think that would be a valid argument. Now, I want to say a little more with the offensive line. Ole Miss has got to get better up front. But you could at least make that argument.
Pretty. Sure. All right, cool. Well, y'all have a good night. I always enjoy the show, and I look forward to hearing y'all the rest of the week.
Okay, thanks, bud. Appreciate him calling from D.C. there. Line back open. If anybody would like to give us a shout. Yeah, I mean, there's an argument for Ole Miss having the third best defense in the conference. Sure. Yeah, I'll buy that. That's what Killa said. Yeah, sure. And yes, Ole Miss does not have a history of beating Auburn, but they have done it, and this Auburn team is not very good. It's just hard to see this Ole Miss team losing to Auburn with that quarterback situation. Everything that would mean and what that would take. I mean, Auburn would have to play so good defensively and keep that to some sort of 13-10 game. I mean, just muddy it up like a bunch of hogs. I mean, it would have to be an ugly football game. This is where I can't stand you guys ahead of me in the stream. Because LSU just finished their second down play. It's coming up for 3rd and goal right now for me, and I'm assuming I'm at least a play behind. No, you're right. State's scrappy. State is not a bad football team. They're not an elite football team. They can be beat. There's not a ton about them that's going to scare you at all. But they're not bad. They're very serviceable, and if you play poorly, they will beat you. State is the perfect team from the standpoint of for an Ole Miss or an SEC team that is in that second tier, as Neil and I keep talking about outside of Alabama and Georgia, that it's up to you. If you play well, you win. If you play poorly, you lose. That's it. It is completely up to you when you play Mississippi State. You dictate that. Their ceiling is set where it is, but their floor is also sort of set where it is, where there's only so much that happens at that point. More than maybe any other, I think State is like that. I don't know if there's another team in the league that is that even from they do what they do and you know exactly what to expect when that is the case. The SEC slate, somebody asking the week of Ole Miss and Kentucky. Pulling that up right now. Give me 1 second. Again, you can call if you have questions. We've got that number up on the screen here now. The schedule, the week of Ole Miss and Kentucky, is Georgia at Missouri, Alabama at Arkansas, which is what we mentioned. That's definitely a game day possibility if Arkansas wins today, pulls it out against Missouri State, and beats A&M next week. Ole Miss at Kentucky, Alabama currently 2nd, Arkansas currently 10th, Ole Miss currently 20th, again 17 in the coaches poll, 20 in the AP poll. Kentucky at 9, A&M at Mississippi State is that day. It's an interesting game. LSU at Auburn. I mean, somebody gets a win. South Carolina State, South Carolina, and then Eastern Washington and Florida. Those are your games for October 1st inside the SEC. Yeah, Florida struggling with South Florida after playing really poorly against Kentucky. I know they scored, but still. It is showing us in so many ways that we can do these week one overreactions. I mean, I think Florida is better. I mean, don't get me wrong, but we can really, really overreact to week one stuff. I mean, frankly, any week right now, because college football is it's a dumb sport. I mean, it's crazy and different stuff every single week. But then also we don't have enough sample sizes. You're seeing young players make a lot of mistakes, and that's changing games, emotion, getting your kids up week in and week out is such a chore. It's why I think coaching is underrated when we look at all the different aspects of the teams that are consistent and winning at the levels that they potentially are. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Memphis Rebel, at this point, how many games is Ole Miss the underdog in? That's a good question. Alabama. And we're assuming that they played tomorrow. Let's just do it that way. Not even when they played the game. Potentially in College Station. That's it, right? They would be favorites against Auburn. I think they would be a favorite today against Kentucky. They would be a favorite in Baton Rouge, even though it wouldn't be as big as you guys would probably think it should be at that point. I think it's 2. Yeah, I think you're right. No. In Fayetteville, no, they would be an underdog. Assuming Arkansas wins this game today, I think Ole Miss would be a minuscule, small underdog in Fayetteville. No, I am drinking water. I'm not having alcohol. I know it's boring. I know we had this conversation last week, but I have not slept well this week. Especially since I'm still getting back on a normal schedule after finishing writing for the book, because I was getting up stupid early to write the book, and I have not completely recovered, and I feel like alcohol is going to mess up my sleep, and I haven't slept well the last couple of days. It's the sure sign that I'm getting a little older and that I'm becoming old, is that I am obsessed with doing 3 or 4 things to make sure I try to get adequate rest right now, especially when we trying to get back into my normal routine. Again, boring as hell, nobody cares, but that's the answer, is that even now at 7:47, that's late enough that 1 or 2 drinks would absolutely affect my sleep tonight. I'm old. I'm boring. It's okay. Yeah, Killa says Ole Miss 42, Kentucky 14. I don't buy that. I think that's too much. But I mean, I think I would pick Ole Miss to win today. I would. I mean, I watched Kentucky beat Florida, and Kentucky's good. They're defensively, they can really frustrate you, and I think they could win the kind of game where when we get on here for the show after Kentucky, I think you guys would be losing your mind on what a loss like that would look like, because it would look like this bogged down mess of a game for Kentucky to win because of what I think they would do defensively. And they're very, very balanced. Yeah, I think that would be a weird game in a lot of ways. But I look at that game, and Kentucky caused some of the problems, but Richardson was awful. I mean, he just made a lot of unforced errors that were all over the place. There's no other way to put it. I know Avery Yoga would absolutely help with the sleep and just my flexibility in general. I've got a friend that tells me that all the time. I am very, very, very inflexible. I think Ole Miss has a higher ceiling than Arkansas. Tony says Ole Miss better than Arkansas. Look, I think either one of those can win games against the other, but I think Ole Miss has a higher ceiling than Arkansas. Now, Ole Miss has done very well against Stoops lately. Lane got the win in the crazy game in 20. DK and Matt won in 17. Yeah, Florida up 17-10 on South Florida. Mississippi State currently down 1 to LSU. LSU 17-16, 13:49 to go in Baton Rouge. At least on my TV, a state player currently down. I'm definitely not ready for yoga in a studio. I mean, you could convince me to try some YouTube videos and just give it a shot and embarrass myself in the privacy of my own office. I don't think we're willing to put that on display. Colonel, no, I have not heard from Bubba this year. Kind of hate that. Hope he calls in. Hope we get him back. But I have not heard from him. Daniel asked, why are they playing Ole Miss? Playing Kentucky this frequently. It's because that 20 schedule was just manipulated. They didn't do the COVID 2020 schedule in any way that was in a rotation. It was completely separate of that. So with that thrown out, the way they have done it, it's just kind of back in the way it works. Although it does still feel like it's 1 year too soon, does it? Doesn't it? I don't have a great answer for that, but I know that the reason why it feels as frequent as it is because Florida and Kentucky were just added to the 20 schedule. No, Florida was already on it. It was Kentucky. It was just completely added to the schedule in 20. The post game is not the same without Neil, and it's also I'm gonna tweak it probably as soon as next week. I think I'm gonna have Brian come in with me because it's also different just one person. It takes out the ability to watch games as easily when you're just kind of hanging out and talking. There's a collegial feel that is that's so different when there are two people in studio. I completely I agree with you. It's a different show right now the way it's set up. It's not necessarily bad or good, but the negative does point out to me that I feel myself that it changes the aspects of interacting with callers, interacting with you guys, not having somebody who's kind of initiating conversation while somebody's working the production. Because when you have to do it all at the same time, it can get a little bogged down just on the things that I need to do to run the show while also trying to make sure I'm talking and looking and everything else. Yes, I'm writing a book on Ole Miss's baseball season, on them winning the national championship. Getting really, really close. I think a soft release will be in the next couple weeks, and then a full release by the middle of October. We're getting really close. I had to be done writing at the 1st of September, and it's all in the layout, the edit, the design phase right now. So I'm excited about it. I think a lot of you guys who want to read it will enjoy it. It's got a ton of anecdotes that you've never heard, you've never seen, stuff that maybe the media did a poor job with during the season. People were really, really good as far as sitting down and recapping memories and different things. It's been a neat process. I've enjoyed doing it. It was fast. It's one of those deals where you wish you had another month. You wish you had 6 more months. You wish you had time because you could have fleshed out some other stories and subjects and all these different things. All these things you wish you would have done. And I feel like I'm going to get there and I'm going to start reading them and go, hey, I wish I'd have talked to this person or done that. But overall, I think it does a really, really, really good job of telling the impact of the season, not just what all happened and what they did to fall to 7-14 to the win, but the psychology of the change that was going to come with Mike Bianco and the coaching staff should they not make Omaha or Super Regional. We delve into all that, and then what it's meant for you guys, what it's meant for the program, for the fan base, for supporters in general, for Ole Miss to win the national title and get over the hump. I examine all those different things in the book. I think there's a lot there if you're an Ole Miss baseball fan or just an Ole Miss fan that wants a little different appreciation for the national championship that's just won. I really tried to not just focus on what happened, but a lot of kind of the psychology of what people were thinking and doing and how Mike handled the down times when it looked like his job was over, and then ultimately their rise and their postseason journey through getting so hot over the course of the postseason. Pre-order is not an option, but we will have an online option immediately as soon as it's live. We could do a pre-order, but frankly, I just am going to go ahead and get it out. As soon as it's ready, we're going to go ahead and get it ready to be sold and not do a couple weeks of a pre-order. We're going to let you have it ready to go. Doors, no word yet on injuries. I started this show, as you know, 10 minutes after the game ended, so I haven't even heard Lane speak. Anything that Lane said in the postgame, you guys would have to tell me, because the way this happens, I don't even have an answer to that. So it's one of those deals where you'll have to tell me if Lane said anything that was interesting in any way. I have not seen or heard anything on Corey Coleman. No. And I mean and that's the one. I mean, again, I didn't see anybody else get hurt to the standpoint of being a problem moving forward, except for potentially Coleman. And I'm not saying he is there, but that was it. I think everybody came out pretty healthy, considering the game. I thought Ole Miss, as long as that is not some major injury, got out pretty good from a health standpoint. It's going to open around $20, William. LSU got it back 1st and 10, at least on my screen again. No, look, Lane stayed good and pissed there in the second half. I mean, he did a great job of coaching to the whistle and finding and nitpicking issues with everything. I mean, that was some impressive stuff from Lane. I mean, it really was. I was thoroughly impressed with what he did right there. And I think Neil's right. I do. I think it's a culture. I think we're not going to lay off. We're going to kind of keep going, and you got 60 minutes, and you're drilling in that no matter which 11 are in the game, they're getting an opportunity to not just be on the field and play, but to move up in the pecking order, to show something. I mean, there is value in every snap for somebody. I think that's something that's very relevant in this. I think that's what Lane is trying, because that's a place that Ole Miss hasn't necessarily been in as a program. I mean, it's just, we're being honest. I mean, I think he is 100% trying to get not even a robotic mindset, because he knows he's not Saban. It's not doing what Alabama does from that standpoint, but it's making sure every player knows that there's no loaf time. It's when things need to be going. Yeah, you're right, Colonel. I mean, yeah, as of Game 3, the identity of this team absolutely is defense. Yeah, and run game. It's a physical, downhill run game team that plays really good defense, that can ball control you. And it's what makes them very dangerous should Dart mature and get better as the year goes on. And I mean mature physically. He seems to be mature mentally. Matures physically because if you can add a dynamic quarterback that can make throws to that, well, now suddenly you're really, really cooking. I mean, it's what gives Ole Miss that higher ceiling. I mean, that's what I said. It's one of those deals where Ole Miss, I think, has a higher ceiling than Arkansas, but it's because I believe in the potential of the Ole Miss offense more than I do the Arkansas upside. I think KJ's a good quarterback. I think they can win a lot of games. I mean, it's very possible they win. Look, they can turn it around tonight. They could go win 10 games, sure. But at the same time, he's probably not fixing all of his footwork issues. He's probably not going to just suddenly become a dynamic passer. In a couple of years, we're going to look up. I mean, I told Neil, I think Dart's an NFL quarterback. If you're Auburn, you make Mel Tucker say no 47 times. I think that's probably what I would do. I just don't know at Georgia Tech. I mean, that is one hard job. I went to their message board a little bit, and they don't have any NIL money. They've got some academic restrictions. Everybody comes into Atlanta and recruits. I mean, there's no exclusivity whatsoever. You've got Georgia an hour down the road. I mean, that is a freaking haul for Georgia Tech to get competitive. I mean, it is a long way from that right now. I just don't know. I mean, you've got to try to build something Pat Fitzgerald-ish. You've got to find one of those kind of guys. But, dude, I don't know. Well, look, Auburn's got to not hire an Auburn man. I mean, it's at some point they've got to figure out, with their two biggest rivals being the top two programs in the country right now, it's about finding a fit and getting out of the way. And I mean, Harson's been a disaster so far for things that are his fault and things that aren't his fault, in my opinion. I mean, maybe Grind has a better opinion, but that's kind of where I'm sitting on that. Yeah, I couldn't decide what all I thought about what Collins had on today. I don't mind Tech's little block letter logo thing. I'm not used to it. But I don't necessarily mind it either. And you're probably right. Maybe they do go completely back into family this time. I could see that. And they absolutely have too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. Everybody's got an opinion. That's the problem. They have not evolved to the point of hire somebody and then get out of the way and let them run it. What Alabama did with Saban, what Texas to some extent is trying to do, but it still had a really hard time. I mean, it's hard to break away and just be that group. And yeah, when you've got Georgia sitting there as your permanent opponent and your expectations are 10 wins, well, hell, there's a lot to be going right there. I mean, Jesus. Yeah, we laugh about Tulane and Sewanee, but Georgia Tech is the one that they just chose to leave the SEC. Some old dudes at a lot of schools made a lot of really correct decisions that brought a lot of money to their universities. And then you got what happened with Georgia Tech. There's no doubt about that. Who are we talking to?
Hey, it's Mark again. I figured nobody was calling, so I figured I'd call back and ask one more question.
Sure.
All right, so it's a golf question. Is that okay?
I mean, I'm good. Y'all take the show.
All right, cool. So how long do you think this live golf thing actually lasts? And because, I mean, they've already got Cam Smith, which I remember Neil saying and you saying a couple weeks ago that they got Cam Smith, and okay, well, I mean, this thing kind of gets real, and that might be a real competitor to the PGA. I mean, do you think like the Masters and like the U.S. Open, the Open, the PGA Championship are really not going to let these guys play?
Well, I mean, some of the problem is it's more based off World Golf ranking points. By the way, somebody asked when Tech left the SEC. It was in 1964. That's when Georgia Tech left the SEC. So, yes, they absolutely left. At least, I mean, maybe not modern era, but it was not like it was in the 1930s and they made that decision. I mean, it was in the 60s. Okay, two things. One, it's World Golf ranking points because unless the majors change the ways you can get in, if you can't play PGA Tour events and you're losing World Golf ranking points, well then unless you're qualified through the majors, how are you getting in anyway? How are you playing the majors? Because you don't qualify. You're not in the top 60.
But doesn't it water down the majors though?
Well, again, maybe then, I guess that's my point. Is maybe they completely restructure they restructure everything, but that would require a restructure, and it would require the majors to go, okay, we're going to take the top 30 in the live, and maybe that's what happens. But I mean, it would take that level of change. It's a big game of chicken right now between everybody. Yeah. And look, I think that the live golf can make money. I think that there are ways for them to make money and to be a viable golf league in that standpoint. I also don't think the Saudis are just obsessed with golf. So I think some ways your answer is...
It's all about... Yeah.
It's sports washing. So the answer is as long as they believe that a golf tour benefits them in the areas they want to be benefited. And when they decide that it's no longer benefiting, that's the answer.
For them.
Oh, it's 100% public perception. Yes, it is about showcasing what they want to showcase in a positive way that helps with other things. It's not about the golf. They just have unlimited money and chose golf as the thing that they can do it. I mean,
so do you think this is a thing in 2025?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I didn't, but I do now. I mean, I don't, if you say 2030, 2040, I mean, hell, I don't know. But no, I mean, I don't see any reasons why, whatever. I mean, yeah, Brandon says, I see that more live golfers signed up for more DP Tour events. Yeah, sure. You're going to see more in some other events, other places. I mean, and some of these international players are saying, look, our families and where we live, they can see us more on these things than maybe they could all the time on the PGA Tour because of limited cameras. I mean, there are several aspects of this that are fascinating from that standpoint.
I mean, I get it. I mean, if you offered me, say I'm kind of surprised that What's the name? What's the guy from Japan that won the Masters last
Hideki
year?
Matsuyama.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised that he didn't take I guess, what was offered, $400 million or something. I mean, I know he probably has, his net worth's probably $50-60 million, probably more than he'll ever need. But still, I mean, if you offer me $400 million, I mean, I'd be an idiot not to take that.
No, I mean, I get it.
Especially some of these cats in college.
But he's got enough that he's in that realm like Spieth and Rory and those guys where legacy at this point matters more.
But didn't they just get like some cat that it's like at Arizona State or something?
Yeah, they just signed like the number 2 amateur in the world or something.
Yeah, I mean they're probably paying him $2 or $3 million at a minimum. I mean, you'd be an idiot not to take that. I mean, you're not making crap as a college golfer.
There are things that are going to there. If nothing else, they're a viable option that is going to make the PGA Tour have to rethink everything they're doing. I mean, I'm still going to bet on the PGA Tour long term, but yes, no, I think LIV can absolutely hang around and be a pain in the tail and cause everybody else to at least figure out what you're going to do with ranking points, what you're going to do with some of these international competitions. As Brandon said, where you don't water down the majors and where you let people actually play or otherwise. I mean, yeah. If the U.S. Open is nothing but a PGA Tour event, well, hell, who cares as much about the U.S. Open? I mean, Cam Smith is somebody we do want to watch in majors. So, yeah, 100%. I get it. So,
all right, cool. Well, I'll hang up and listen to the rest of the show. Y'all have a good night.
Appreciate it. Again, if anybody wants to call, it is 662-259-7556. Is the number. LSU Mississippi State here in the fourth quarter. Wake Forest held on against Liberty. What is our Arkansas Missouri State score right now? Where's that at? Yeah, if Quantum Leap doesn't have Scott Bakula, then there is no show. Quantum Leap absolutely has to have Scott Bakula. That's the only way that thing works. I'm watching State and the main LSU's play here. (17-14) Missouri State now over Arkansas. Yeah, look, Arkansas is going to win the game. I mean, they survived the early sleepiness. It says Missouri State's driving, but I still have a hard time believing they win that game. I mean, if so, it'll make for a good show on Monday. But, that doesn't change Ole Miss's season. I mean, frankly, in some ways, other than the schadenfreude and the laughing at fan bases, we can all laugh at A&M when they lose these bad teams. But in a lot of ways, you don't need the SEC to lose those kind of games. I mean, you want to make it where if you do lose to a team, you don't get hit with a public perception of you shouldn't have. And if you beat a team, you want that to have maximum exposure for getting the win. And that's not me saying, go root for the SEC against all the non-conferences. Because, look, trust me, there's plenty of times when I want to laugh at the SEC when they lose games. Or at least teams in the SEC when they lose games. But if you're just looking for straight PR standpoint, that doesn't help you. You want to maximize, outside of them losing conference games to help you, or if it gets you into a Sugar Bowl if somebody loses or something like that, you're better off with them winning. If you beat an Arkansas team, you don't want to beat the Arkansas team that just lost to Missouri State. Yeah, Michigan may be great, but I don't know what in the world to make of them. UConn, Hawaii, and somebody else? Yeah, LSU scores. Attempting the PAT now. They have really found their footing here in the second half, and with 6:53 to go, LSU up 24-16 on Mississippi State. So still one possession. It's a decent question. So it's exactly how much momentum can Brian Kelly gain from beating Mississippi State? That's a good question. Some, because it's an SEC win, it's a good win, but it's not one of those where you go, oh, wow, they are really on this thing. It's blah, 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 blah. No, it's not that. But no, it's important. because a loss would have been another chaotic event down in Baton Rouge. It's a stabilizing win is what it is for me. It's not necessarily elevating much, but it's absolutely a stabilizing deal. LSU now to 66 plays. State only 251 total yards and 176 through the air. I mean, LSU's done a pretty good job of kind of tackling them in place. State at 13 first downs. Both teams gotten after the quarterback. Yeah, I knew there was some empty seats in Baton Rouge. We're just getting kickoff for Texas A&M in Miami, so that one's getting underway. We'll obviously talk about that on Monday. It's a stabilizing win. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, maybe he's lost a little locker room, but you can get it back. It's early. September 17th. Got a long season to go in a good and bad way. There's plenty of time to kind of get some stuff back, and there's plenty of time for that thing to go all sorts of sideways. Been going a little over 2 hours, 2:11 now. Again, if anybody wants to call, because I'm probably going to watch a good bit of this A&M Miami game off air. Anybody wants to give a shout, 662-259-7556. If you've got something you want to talk about, it's right there. Maybe it's heard my dog's trying to eat someone. I'm not really sure what's going on there. No, State plays horrible in Baton Rouge. I mean, it is, Ole Miss had all that lack of success in Tuscaloosa over the years. State is every bit of that here for LSU in Baton Rouge. I mean, it has been a collection of chaos. Who are we talking to?
Stephen in Mandeville.
Hey, Stephen, how are you?
Good evening, doing well, thank you. Caden Costa. Any chance of him coming back by the end of the season, maybe by the Egg Bowl?
That is when he is officially off suspension, so he would be eligible for that. I kind of have a hard time believing, though, that they would drop Cruz, barring him being bad between now and then. I mean, I guess if Cruz really had struggles, but I would assume that it's a season at this point. It's just my guess. I mean, I don't know that. That is not sourced, but yeah, he's definitely out until the Egg Bowl, just from an NCAA suspension link standpoint.
And I'm not going to play this role as if I know a lot of the background, but it seemed just kind of black and white with his testing positive for this banned substance. And everybody here in Mandeville that knows he and his family, they just rave about his character and are all of the opinion that this was not anything done intentional. But I guess the NCAA's flexing their muscles and they're not going to budge on something along these lines.
That is my interpretation. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's any like character flaw or anything along those lines. I think it was something there, but yeah, it feels like by the letter, as you said, the NCAA choosing to go letter of law, it does feel like he had tested positive with a, I guess, banned substance would be the appropriate way to put it. And then once that was done, I think the frustrating thing, and I'm a little skeptical. Let me just say allegedly, because I don't want to get down a thing where I say something incorrectly here, so I want to be kind of careful. I had heard that he'd had multiple failures on a test, and I think if you're Ole Miss or Caden Costa personally, or family, that would be the frustrating thing, because if you'd had multiple, it shows that maybe it was not just some sort of one-time event. Again, not saying it was something that he knew about. I'm not going down that road. But just whatever it was, it feels like something that was in his system for a length of time, at least enough for multiple tests, whatever that means or doesn't mean. But yes, I think that's what probably caused some of what happened to the extent it did of the NCAA going, nope, that's 365 days. Because look, I mean, it's a kicker. I mean, it's not it's not a professional wrestler, it's not a linebacker who's trying to juice up for football. He does not need tighter muscles. He needs more flexibility as a kicker.
Yeah, I had not heard anything much about him as of late. Admittedly, I haven't had my finger on the pulse, but when you saw the field goal attempt this afternoon, it might have been partially blocked. And I go back to the Sugar Bowl, a couple missed field goals in the Sugar Bowl, that could have turned the tables as well. I know Corral going down was huge, but I think folks have a tendency to forget that we had 2 missed field goals in the Sugar Bowl that could have potentially turned the tide. I mean, that's neither here nor there at this point in the season, but, I just I felt he had a huge upside.
Oh, no,
True
there's no doubt
freshman,
about
had
that. I mean,
cannon
he's a
for a
hell of a
leg.
kicker. Yeah.
And as the season
go ahead.
as
Sorry.
the season gets no problem. No, as the season, goes on and you get in tougher competition, not to be Captain Obvious, but good kickers can be the deciding factor in many respects. So, I was just, you can play the woe is me, it's not fair type thing, but you look at the landscape of not just college athletics, but athletics in general. And, I know you said you're not going down that road relative to, potentially multiple, and I respect that. And I'm not interpreting that you're saying that, but the reality is that you said, like you said, he's a kicker, and, for them to throw the book at him like this, it almost reminds me of, who was the running back, Jordan Wilkins, a few years back when he changed majors, and his advisor, whomever, didn't inform the NCAA, if I'm not mistaken, and just to come out. I mean, he's changing an academic major for the love of Pete. It's not as if he's, raping people or committing grand larceny in any way, shape, or form, and you're going to suspend him for the season. I know that was, Freeze was hot and heavy at the time, and I think the NCAA, had it out for.
Well, frankly,
Ole Miss
I mean, that was all
time.
Ole Miss. I mean, with the Wilkins thing, it was that he changed his major to something that did not make him academically eligible because of degree progression. Because to what he had changed to, you have to be a certain level toward graduation to remain eligible, and he chose a degree that he was not at that standard to.
So it was almost as if was it in theory he was regressing his in
theory he had not made the academic progress to be eligible, I guess would be the by the book definition of it. Correct.
Okay, well I stand corrected on that.
Yeah, that was a complete Ole Miss failure. But no, look, here's your point. Yeah, so look, steroids are not going to make Caden Costa suddenly kick 75-yard field goals. I mean, I don't think it did anything for his play or execution on the field, and there's no way in the world that Caden Costa is the only player in college football taking steroids and getting away with it. Banned substances, however you want to put it. Sure. I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. I mean, it's nonsensical to believe that he was under some sort of HGH manipulation to make him a college kicker.
No, I completely agree. It's just, I'm from Bay St. Louis originally, but I've been in Mandeville about 12 years now, and you get to know people, and everyone that I've spoke to that has some sort of affiliation with him, maybe their kids are friends with him or that type of thing. And I brought my daughter to Mandeville High School when they had the signing day ceremony, and we talked briefly to him and his parents, and just a snapshot in time, obviously, but you hear from more than one person, you tend to believe it. And it's just really kind of a bummer because of the talent that he has, and for him to be suspended for an entire season, it just seems extremely grotesque in its discipline. It's, it is what it is. I know that's a used expression, but that is the situation. But anyway, have I missed the College World Series season episode? Have they produced one? And if they haven't, are they going to?
They are. I think it's going to be very long, and they are taking their time to make it as good as possible. They 100% are doing it. I don't know if what I know is okay to say, but yes, they are. They are absolutely doing one. It is still to come out. And I don't know whether it's Thanksgiving or December or during football season. I do not know a date, but I know we're fairly closing in on it, but that it will be, what I'm aware of, to be almost like a movie-length season that covers everything and as good of a job as they can do. Yeah.
Well, they do a stand-up job in every production. And, the longer they take, I think that just bodes well for the quality. So I was just curious. I figured that maybe it would come out right before football. But as long as they're going to be having one, I think that's what's important. But, watching LSU just scored again, LSU's defense has played well tonight. State has a funky offense that can throw some curveballs at people, and Will Rogers in his third season, he knows the offense like the back of his hand, and to LSU's credit, they've held them in check, and turned it on here in the fourth quarter, and looks like they're going to walk away with the victory. But no, I mean, for those who were poor mouthing LSU, I mean, offensively, yeah, their quarterback. I mean, he's realizing positive plays because they're like, yeah, he is, but he's realized positive plays because he's just made plays up on his own with his legs. Mm-hmm. Pockets collapsing around him, and I'm sure State's trying to spy him. They may not be doing a good job of it, but anyway, he just threw a 47-yard touchdown, so they're up 15, 4:50 left. So I think this game's pretty much done.
I think that one's done.
But,
no, they've given a blueprint for Ole Miss to beat Mississippi State, which Ole Miss was obviously aware of, but you just tackle. You keep them in front of you, and you tackle, and you make them convert third downs, and they're gonna throw nothing complete passes to give you the ball back. And they've done a great job. I mean, State again, they've done Throwing tonight.
No, they've done a very, very good job of that. No question about that. But I'm interested in this A&M Miami game as well. That's the one I've really been looking forward to because I think things can get really, really squirrely in A&M if they somehow if they can't pick this one up and then they go to Arlington next week and lose that game. I think I'm not predicting anything, but it'll just be interesting just to say the least. And one more thing before I get off, I know there's been some potential chatter about game day giving Ole Miss Kentucky a look. Alabama is at Arkansas that same weekend. So if Arkansas pulls out tonight, which I think they will, and then if they can take care of business in Arlington next week, I don't know what's on the landscape outside of the SEC that weekend rather, but I could see game day being in Fayetteville for that.
I think top 10
matchup, possibly even top 5.
Yeah. That's the front runner right now. I mean, if you want to kind of get into where you're really expecting Ole Miss Kentucky, you need Arkansas to lose a football game.
Absolutely. No, there's no question. Yeah, whether it's this weekend or next weekend, no, they have to lose one of the next 2 weekends, if that's the case. But I'll tell you what, that Troy game for Ole Miss, and I say this kind of tongue in cheek, looks halfway like a halfway decent win. With the Sun Belt the way they've been playing as of late, and with App State beating Troy the way they did today. I mean, Troy gave them everything and then some. They should have won the dang game, but flukes happen and they end up losing. But obviously, I don't mean that in a legitimate sense. But I knew they were better than people were giving them credit for. I mean, it's a game that Ole Miss should have won. We were 3-touchdown favorite for obvious reasons, but I think they're going to make some noise in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, John's a good guy. He's a good coach. I mean, defensively, I think they're a good football team, and I think they'll find a little more continuity in offense. It was just Ole Miss was able to completely kind of snuff them out there, and the matchup was poor. But no, it's good for Ole Miss. They've done everything they can do at this point.
No, they have, and I was a little disappointed. My kids served vigil mass today at 4:00, so went to that, and when I'd left, Ole Miss was up like 21-0 at that point, and I felt good about that. But I was a little bummed out that South Alabama couldn't hold on in UCLA.
I wanted to see the Sun Belt get another one, and then also Kane to win one just because I like Kane.
Yeah, no, he seems like a stand-up fellow as well. But, I don't know. I mean, UCLA, they're a brand. I get it. But the attendance at the Rose Bowl was atrocious, and it's been this way for quite some time. I have an uncle who's a native of Mississippi Gulf Coast, based St. Louis, but professionally he's been in Orange County, California since the 70s. And I happened to be visiting some years ago, and it was in the summer, and UCLA was hosting LSU in the first round of It was a super regional, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was a super regional. I just happened to be there. Hey, let's go to UCLA and watch the game. I mean, LSU easily had half the crowd. And this is in Los Angeles. And I know they have a great baseball program and they travel. I get it. But, I mean, kudos to them for going to the Big Ten because they'll realize some nice revenue. And there's a lot going on in L.A. to bide people's time. But my goodness, their attendance is really, really pathetic.
Yeah, they're not ready in a lot of ways, and I think it's going to show on the scoreboard and just kind of the way. And I'm not sure they're dedicated enough to make the jump that would be required, if we're just being honest. I think from a competitive level standpoint, there are a lot more negatives than positives there for them.
And you're spot on about your analysis of Chip Kelly.
Yeah,
I heard you making somewhat the comparison.
He's so played out. He's not evolved as a college football coach at this point.
Exactly. He's going to do it his way, and he's going to come hell or high water. He's just going to stick to it that way, and he's not going to modify in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. But yeah, I was a little bummed out because the way things were trending. I mean, South Alabama. Heck, from what the part of the game I saw, they clearly looked like the better team. At that particular snapshot, they clearly looked like the better team, better coached, better conditioned. And when I saw the score, I believe UCLA kicked somewhat of a chip shot field goal, but it was the last play of the game.
It was, yes.
So, yeah, that's a bummer. Yeah. That's a bummer for them. Well, what do you think about the Saints and Bucks?
I'm a little nervous about tomorrow, which is weird for a Week 2 game, but I kind of am. Because I think that they win. If they could find a way to pull it off, I think they're good. I'm not putting too much stock into being close last week against Atlanta. I think they've got a chance to legitimately kind of go on a little bit of a run here if they can pull this out tomorrow. But who knows? We'll see. I'm in at least.
Yeah.
Noon start for that one.
Oh, so. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's much better going to that game 1-0. So,
sure.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting. Well, listen, thanks for the show. We appreciate it. Have a good evening, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I've got a little pregame jitters for Bucks and Saints of all things. I did not expect that. I mean, I know I'm always pissed off after losses more than I expect, and wins feel like relief more than exuberance. I'm trying to get better about that and actually enjoy the good things, not just be frustrated with the bad things. But I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I think it's gonna be fun. Staying a little bit of a last gasp here, down 8, 3 minutes or so to go. Trying to drive on LSU. So we got a good finish here and then get Miami and Texas A&M still going. Texas has cut it to 17-14 against UTSA, by the way. Oh, he looks down. Well, the pick will make this much more complicated, but that LSU kid being hurt looks like a problem right there. Okay, well, with that getting close to game, state, I don't know how many timeouts they have left. And then we'll all go root for Miami against the Aggies here to close out the night. So we'll stop there. Appreciate everybody for giving us a shout, for being here with us. Really enjoyed the stream, the conversation with you guys. We'll do it again next week. I think we're going to get Brian in studio with me. We'll hang out at some point kind of moving forward. We'll put a camera on him and just watch some football and discuss the win, or assumed win. If it's not, then y'all can all do the show by yourself because I don't want to know the fallout from that. But the game against Tulsa, 3 o'clock next week, and then tons of stuff on MPW Digital, our normal week of content starting on Monday morning with myself and Neil. And I think Brian could have a show tomorrow. He does sometimes. So appreciate him as always for jumping on. Thanks to Neil as well. Thanks to you guys. And we'll talk to you again very, very, very soon.